Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this April 15th, 2026 Board of County Commissioners meeting. We'll now call the meeting to order. And the first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join us.
The flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now we'll go to citizen input. We have switched our Zoom platform, so I just want to let everyone know this Zoom platform for government does not have a timer feature. So if you want to give public comment, you will have 3 minutes. If you're here in the room with us, Eric will be tracking and he will cut you off. If you're online, we'd ask that you try to monitor yourself, and Eric will pause you at 3 minutes if you go over that. So with that, I have 2 blue forms. If there's anyone else who would like to provide public comment this morning, please get us one of these blue forms. And if there's anyone online who would like to give public comment, please use the raise hand feature on your Zoom. So first up, we have Lon Lenev, and I could call you both just so you're all queued up. Elizabeth, is it Whitey or Whitey? Yeah, any of those microphones should work.
Good morning. I'm Lon Lenev, a resident of Bend, and I'm here today to express my support for adopting Defensible Space Code throughout Deschutes County. I speak from the perspective of having over 5 years of wildfire mitigation experience as follows. I'm chair of the Aubrey Butte Firewise Committee, a large community with 782 properties. Since 2022, my wife and I have conducted wildfire property assessments for Aubrey Butte and starting last year for Bend Fire as well. I co-chair the Project Wildfire Neighborhood Coalition, which is a subcommittee of the Deschutes County Project Wildfire Organization. The coalition is a rapidly growing group of rural and urban communities spread throughout Deschutes County. With almost 100 community members, we meet monthly to conduct education sessions and share best practices, recruit new communities seeking to become firewise or improve their fire safety capabilities, and we support early-stage communities seeking help by providing mentorship services so they can learn from an experienced member and avoid having to recreate the wheel. With regard to code adoption, you may recall I and other members of the coalition leadership team recently spoke in support of the adoption of Oregon Residential Code R327, addressing home hardening for new construction. We represented the Neighborhood Coalition membership, which had voted overwhelmingly to support the adoption of this code. And I'm very pleased to say it appears that all jurisdictions within the county will be doing so. As mentioned, I am here today to show my personal support for encouraging Deschutes County to adopt a mandatory Defensible Space Code. I am not speaking on behalf of the coalition yet, as we have not voted on the adoption of Defensible Space Code. We will discuss this issue tomorrow at our April meeting in Sun River, and while this code will be more complicated than the R327 code and likely will require more discussion, I anticipate a very favorable level of interest from our membership. Personally, I think adoption of the Defensible Space Code would be a massive game changer in terms of greatly accelerating the creation of defensible space across the county. Today, we rely on owners voluntarily doing the right thing. Some do, many don't. With legitimate wildfire threats seemingly increasing every year, requiring owners to properly protect their property and therefore improve the safety of those properties around them is a very sound use of public policy. Based on my experience, it's important to note that even when owners get a voluntary fire assessment, the resulting remediation rate, meaning they perform the recommended improvements, is unfortunately below 50%. That's based on surveys we have taken. While better than nothing, relying on voluntary adherence is nowhere near what an enforceable defensible space policy would provide in terms of speed and effectiveness when generating countywide protective space. It would greatly enhance meaningful risk mitigation, and it is exactly what is needed in our effort to avoid massive wildfire tragedies in Central Oregon. Thank you.
Thank you, Lon.
Thanks for all your leadership. I know you work really hard on this, and I so appreciate it. I think you've really educated a lot of people. Just
Thank you.
with what you're doing, I know every day, every week, right?
A lot of us that are doing that. So
Right, I know. Well, you know, when I drive down Newport, it makes me so nervous. I see those wood fences, I see the trees on the rooftops. Yes, and if something hits them, they're just gonna, it's just gonna, if the wind is blowing, remember, the wind is the real undeterminable factor in fire.
Yes, and
For me?
we will be discussing defensible space code for potential adoption outside of the incorporated cities later this morning. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I'm Elizabeth Whitey, and I co-chair Project Wildfire Neighborhood Coalition with Lon. We've been working on this for a couple of years. I also work as a community manager for one of the community management companies here. So I run I run 12 HOAs, and our group runs about 65. My big reason for supporting this defensible space code is obvious, but the main priority for me has been able to enforce it in my neighborhoods, because I'm trying to teach the people in the communities that I manage how to do defensible space, why to do defensible space, why it matters to them, that sort of thing. All of our ARC requirements, which is Architectural Review Committee, they basically, they have to be modified in order to accommodate defensible space. And so right now it's a really interesting battle between trying to educate people on what to do, but the rules say they can't do it. And so like you can't remove the vegetation around your home without permission, and some boards will allow you, some or committees will allow you, some won't. So education, I think, is critical. The other thing that I'm dealing with my job is landscapers and fence builders and that sort of thing. All of them need to be educated into what defensible space means and why we need to do this. And everybody's really interested. I mean, there's been training that Melissa and her crew have been doing, and the landscapers are going to it, and people are jazzed. They're learning how to do this stuff. And I just feel like we need to keep the momentum going. One of the things that you run into in some of these neighborhoods is people are wanting you to hand weed. My theory is you should have goats doing your weeding. I mean, especially in common areas.
I just texted Marina about the goat grants.
Yep.
To see, because yes, I know we have them. I was told we have them, so I'm
They're-
trying to get them.
Yep. So it's like, the native plants will come back, but you need to get rid of a lot of the extremely flammable weeds that are in all of our. And so one of the things, and also trees. A lot of my neighborhoods think that they're supposed to remove all their trees. They're like, well, we like our trees. And I'm like, I like your tree too. You don't need to remove your tree. So it's just education. There's a lot of misconception out there as to what defensible space is, and a lot of arguments about why we should or should not do it. With you guys passing this, it just allows people like us to educate in a very positive manner, and I think bring about some really good change. And I'll end on, my sister-in-law just lost her home a year ago in Pacific Palisades. And in that community, everybody was super anti removing trees, removing plants, doing the defensible space, because it's, to them, that was messing up their environment. But, they all lost their homes. And I'm not saying that if they'd had defensible space, they would have saved their homes, but at least it would have been, there was a chance. So with that, I'll end. Thank you very much for your time.
No, and they also lost 24 people in the Palisades fire, I believe, or maybe it was the one from the other side of town too. But no, there was no water. There were no firemen. It was a compounded issue. And yes, there was a lot of vegetation. I can say that the first house I built, it did actually survive without any firemen, because it was a Mediterranean with, landscaping always trimmed around the house. You've got to do that. Not remove completely, but at least manicured.
Thank you so much for your input. And as you know, we will be discussing or hearing a presentation on this topic a little bit later in the meeting. So if you want to stick around, we would welcome you. All right. Eric, is there anyone online? Anyone else in the room who would like to provide citizen input who hasn't given us a blue form yet? Okay, seeing none, we can move on to our commissioner announcements. Are there any commissioner announcements?
2 items. Oregon Prepared Conference is in Sun River right now. So that's the Oregon Emergency Management Department and emergency managers from around the states, cities, and counties. So this is an annual kind of, pre-summer preparedness conference with the professionals in the field. So it's just happy to welcome Oregon Prepared Conference in Sun River. Also, last night, Ben Chamber event, Brian's Cabinets, real success story business in the area. And it was interesting to hear that, there's still construction going on, and 90% of what they build there is for Central Oregon. So it was really exciting to know that local company, local manufacturing, very efficient, building, interior cabinets for the construction going on in Central Oregon.
Great local business. Anything else? Commissioner Dare, any commissioner announcements?
I don't know. I'm trying to decide. We have a really serious problem in our state because of the wolf issue. Highway 395 is the dividing line, and it's not working for those people on this side of 395. And I did contact Mariana Temple Ruiz regarding the goat grants. Hopefully we will. She told me last fall at the Flat Fire that we would have goat grants available. And we have a herd of 500 goats in Terrebonne, 500 goats and sheep that can do fabulous cleanup work. So it's going to be a challenging year. But there is snow on the pass again, and I think they said that it doesn't snow after March 31st, and I can testify that there is snow up there again. So good news.
I'll mention a few things. Last Thursday, we had there was a COACT board meeting, and I attended as well. I was going to go as an Oregon Transportation Committee member, but I also attended as the alternate for the county. One of the important things that was discussed at that meeting was the Highway 97 Safety Coalition, and some of the cities who participate in COACT mentioned that they would like to see a bullet added to our letter about the need for Highway 97 safety, essentially saying, also, we are concerned about a pedestrian and bicycle crossing of 97 because, when you look around, for example, the city of Bend or the city of Redmond, and a number of the serious or fatal accidents that have occurred on 97 are actually not car on car, but car on bike or car on person. So that's something to think about adding to that policy document or that policy advocacy document in order to just support the concerns of cities so that they can sign on as well. There was a fire resiliency field trip on Monday that was organized by the Nature Conservancy, and Representatives Reschke, Levy, Kropf, and Senator Broadman attended that. We went out to look at work that's occurred within the Deschutes Collaborative Forests project landscape, 257,000 acres that wrap from Black Butte Ranch all the way to Sun River, and noted that within that 257,000 acre landscape, 100,000 acres, footprint acres, have been treated. And that one of the exciting things about that is that the Forest Service understands that, when you're talking about landscape level fire resiliency, fuels reduction, somewhere around you have to treat somewhere around 40% of a landscape in order to actually change fire behavior significantly. And so with that 100,000 acre mark, at least in that landscape that stretches from Black Butte Ranch, wraps around Sisters, wraps around Bend, and wraps around Sun River, we have accomplished that 40%. And as a result, our communities are much safer. So the Nature Conservancy shared with our state legislators, that the power of that, the importance of doing prescribed fire follow-up to thinning and brush mowing and things like that, and ways that the state could continue to support this work happening on our federal lands. Attended the COCC Meal of the Year over the weekend. A great recognition of a couple of county employees, including Sonia Little Deer Evans, and various programs where the county and the community college interface, to help train our workforce, which was really great. And I'll also just mention that on Friday morning, there's going to be a small biochar workshop hosted right here at the Armand, and maybe spilling into this room. Basically, people who are familiar with the amount of biomass we're producing from fuel reduction work in the region, technology people who understand how you convert biomass into biochar, and then people who understand both markets for that material and potential finance sources. And we're going to see if we can, if there's any opportunities to connect the dots and see if we can get some biochar production happening in this region. And for those who are here interested in fire, this is a potentially really valuable outlet for that biomass material, because otherwise, as we know, a lot of people burn it in their yard, and that is a potential fire hazard if they're not paying close attention to their yard debris burn, or in many cases it ends up in our landfill, taking up precious space and costing us. I would estimate, that by my solid waste estimates, costing us $600,000 or more of lost space in our landfill every year. So if we can find other safer, less wasteful ways of disposing of that biomass material that's produced by all the good fuels reduction work we want to happen, then it would be a great thing. So that's it.
I just wanted to point out, I did hear from Holly Jukes yesterday. In the last couple of years, they've actually had 29 million board feet of timber will be harvested, and they are treating 16,500 acres out at that project when it is completed. The good news was, I was at the American Forest Research Council convention last week in Stevenson, and it was a collaboration between BLM, the U.S. Forest Service, commissioners were there, people in the industry were there, and it was the largest attended convention they've had ever with this group. And people were talking. Jacqueline Buchanan, who is head of Oregon, Washington, and a couple of other states, was there in a smaller room with our group, talking about what we can do. And people in the room were explaining that when they are telling the public what is happening, you have to think, we have the annual growth, and then we have the trees that are diseased. You have, your beginning balance of how many trees do we really have. Then we have the growth, which happens every year, or sometimes greater than other, depending on what's happening with our rainfall. And then you have your disease. And then, a lot of times people get very upset, but we in the communities of Oregon have killed so many lumber mills. As I mentioned earlier to the people in the room, we've killed 300 lumber mills. And honestly, you've got to have healthy communities, and we've got to have a healthy forest. So it was I believe, a really excellent collaboration between the groups. And I want to acknowledge again and thank Jim Pfister for pulling together the plaque that I gave to the U.S. Forest Chief Schultz. He made the plaque with several other people from Sun River, and it was myrtle wood surrounded by a cherry wood. It was a beautiful plaque, and I do believe it might almost be as good as the one that Georgia gave to him earlier. So it's, we've got a lot of forests, and as I told him, you could almost see the line when I drove over the Columbia River. Washington State looks so much greener than it did on our side of the river. I don't know. Anyway, I said, we are so dry here. We really have to stay on top of our summer. And what did we have? 5,000 lightning strikes the other day. So it's going to be a challenging year.
Yeah. Okay. Any other announcements? If not, then we can move on to our consent agenda.
So move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Special thank you to Jessica Curis for sticking with us on the Planning Commission. The Terrebonne Community Plan is being discussed. She's a resident of the area and a lot of experience, so it's exciting to have her stick with us for a few more years.
Indeed.
And I do want to say Kirby Nagelhout is on the consent for the project, and it was actually under what our engineer had estimated for that project. So it's for the Gray Courthouse Improvement Project. Really nice when we're actually spending less than what we thought. So
We'll have some elbow room for the deputy DAs over there.
maybe.
Literally.
maybe.
Very good. All right. Calling for the vote, Commissioner Dare,
Yes.
Commissioner DeBonne?
Yes.
And chair votes yes. Thank you. Moving on to our action items. Item number 5 is second reading of ordinance number 2026-009, rezoning property at 19975 Destiny Court from exclusive farm use to multiple use agricultural. Hi, Caroline.
All right. Good morning. For the record, I'm Caroline House. I'm a senior planner with the Deschutes County Planning Division. As Chair Ching just mentioned, this will be second reading today, assuming the board moves forward, which would adopt the applicant's requested plan amendment and zone change. It's been 2 weeks since first reading, and if the board completes second reading today, the ordinance would go into effect in 90 days in July. And I am available for any questions if there are any today.
Any questions? This is second reading, so we have heard about and discussed this application a lot already.
I'll move approval of second reading of ordinance number 2026-009 by title only.
I'll second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? I'll just explain that I will be voting no because I was not persuaded by the evidence provided that this was not a viable farmland for some of the identified uses by the appellants. And I also am concerned about our regulatory language around cluster developments. I support the idea of being able to do cluster developments if you are building close into the city, but we need to operate under the rules that have been outlined for us now, not under potential new rules that the county will be developing to enable cluster development. So, on both of those grounds, I will be voting no on this application. So with that, call for the vote. Commissioner DeBonne,
Yes.
Commissioner Dare,
Yes.
and chair votes no. Thank you, Caroline.
And I'll move adoption of ordinance number, we have to read it by title.
Sorry.
Yes, title only.
By title only.
Three.
Logistics.
Forgot.
Go. Before the Board of County Commissioners of Deschutes County, Oregon, an ordinance amending Deschutes County Code Title 23, the Deschutes County Comprehensive Plan, to change the comprehensive plan map designation for certain property from agriculture to rural residential exception area and amending Deschutes County Code Title 18, the Deschutes County zoning map, to change the zone designation for certain property from exclusive farm use to multiple use agricultural. Ordinance number 2026-009. Right, so that's the second reading.
Okay, and I'll move adoption of ordinance number 2026-009.
And I will second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
So I'll just acknowledge that, there is a very narrow path for this kind of a rezone. We don't see this a lot. It's usually a recommendation of approval coming from a hearings officer relative to our comprehensive plan and state law for land use. So as I say, I do conclude differently that, this is an opportunity. One of my experiences recently was driving down Old Bend Redmond Highway from Bend all the way to Redmond and seeing the wide open spaces and the agricultural activity out there, large parcels with, forage being grown. So we do have a lot of farming and opportunities here. Some of these parcels with the, private property owners' choice can apply for these rezones. And then also by making this decision, we are curing that minimum lot size that was remanded to us. So I'm supportive.
Okay. So calling for the vote, Commissioner Dare,
Yes.
Commissioner DeBonne.
Yes.
Chair votes no.
And
Thanks.
I was just going to make a request if we can get signatures on the ordinance quickly, because this is a remand application. I need to get the decision mailed out to the parties to start the appeal period clock.
Great.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline.
We'll do it today.
Right. Item number 6, Deschutes County District Attorneys Association ratified successor collective bargaining agreement.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Whitney Hale, Deputy County Administrator.
Steve Gunnels, District Attorney.
We're before the board this morning recommending approval on document 2026-278, a collective bargaining agreement between Deschutes County and the Deschutes County District Attorneys Association for the term of July 1, 2026 through June 30th, 2029, as ratified by the association. As the chair mentioned in his introduction, this is a successor collective bargaining agreement with DCDAA. And as the board knows, but for those that may be watching the meeting, this association represents our deputy district attorneys. I'm happy to provide a brief overview of the changes that are included in the contract that's before you today. But before I do that, I'm going to turn it over to District Attorney Gunnels for any comments he has on the contract and the bargaining process.
Thank you, Whitney. Good morning, Commissioners. The contract that's been negotiated is consistent with what we had brought to the board a few weeks ago. And it's I believe, a fair contract. The deputy DAs are pleased with it. And it essentially puts the deputy DAs on the same footing as other county employees. It applies the county's compensation philosophy to that contract, I think, perfectly. And it's it's a step forward for the DA's office in terms of helping to retain good people, which is something that I care about a great deal. And I will say about the process itself, this was a very smooth process. There was a lot of things in play for anybody. On the county side, we pretty much knew what the top and the bottom was, and they were the same thing that could be offered, and the deputy DAs accepted it without any pushback, essentially.
Thanks, Steve. I would echo Steve's comments. This was an incredibly collaborative process that I think was efficient and productive in terms of the time we spent together. And it was clear there was a lot of preparation by the association to come in ready to discuss the issues at hand. So we're very thankful to their approach, and I think it resulted in a great process. Just at a high level, the changes incorporated in this contract include the wage schedule adjustments that Steve mentioned. Those will be effective June 22nd, 2026. the adoption of a CPI-based COLA structure that's consistent with other county CBAs that includes a range of 1% to 4% that's dependent upon that fiscal year's CPI. It includes updates that are related to leave conversion, tuition reimbursement, bereavement leave, and PERS, structural language consistency. We've included language in the contract that's consistent with other CBAs. It also includes a provision that sunsets retiree health insurance premium contributions for new hires who join the county after August 1st of 2026. And with that, I think that's those are the high points of what changed, apart from a little bit of administrative cleanup. So we're happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Well, I'm really glad that we were able to get here. Compensation philosophy is very important here. As a board of commissioners and then the public budget committee members, it's a tricky time not making sure that income and expense lines cross in the near future. Deschutes County's in a probably an enviable position for some local jurisdictions around the state of Oregon, knowing that we are making some tough choices. We're empowering the staff to, have that salary and benefits package. But heard it on the news today, San Diego County and somebody in the East Coast, there's local jurisdictions really struggling with the cost of doing business. So as I say, it's a big picture at the budget for everybody at this point, but knowing that, we're treating people fairly, we have good, empowered employees to do the best job they can out there. So it's exciting there. And we've got a lot of bargaining going on for multiple groups right now. So it's nice to get this one landed.
And it's nice that it's 3 years and it's passed before the deadline. Great job. So no, it's nice to know. And I know your department is incredibly busy. I don't believe we've had another murder so far. We've only had 3. I know we're way ahead of our record, but.
Yeah, we've had 3 murders this year, which is way, way, way too many for us.
Way too many. Yeah, so anyway, I know that you're incredibly engaged. So thank you.
One question I had, the wage schedule adjustment, how did the wage equity study play into that? I mean, it's a significant percentage increase. I'm wondering whether, the wage equity study was what drove that, or whether
No, well,
we're just looking at comps with other counties, or.
correlated in the sense that the market portion of the wage equity study was applied to AFSCME and non-represented employees. And so that same compensation philosophy is the one that was applied to these represented classifications. And so it's essentially applying the same methodology that was used in phase 2 of that project to this group, which was not included in scope of phase 2 of the wage equity project. So I think, to echo what Steve said at the outset, it's applied consistency of the compensation philosophy, and we're applying that equitably in this, here with these adjustments.
Thank you.
But then also for the budget officer, having this landed is really nice because it'll kind of lock it in, especially for those next couple of years during the budgeting seasons. We know that the state legislature may be in a really tight spot because they've been really growing that whole base and the expenses of state government, but we want to be partners with them. And this definitely affects the general fund. And then another statement, I do support you as the elected district attorney to be able to figure out those deputy DAs level 1, 2, and 3 also.
Mm-hmm. One additional question. Do we have a sense of, with these modifications, what the FY27 budget will look like for the DA's office versus this year?
Yes, I would want to follow up with you on specifics just because I don't have that information directly in front of you, but we've been coordinating closely with Steve and with Jessica, as well as the budget team. And so I think as the budget has been developed, we're all aware of the anticipated impact associated with this and have been planning around that. Steve, anything you want to add?
Just what we anticipate is the budget will continue to get tighter as the growth limits go on. Just it's a matter of math.
Yeah.
But I think we're in good shape. Just generally speaking, we're not going to be laying people off, knock wood, to try to accommodate those restrictions. We've built in a number of other ways to save money other than laying people off, which is really, I'm very grateful that we have that ability.
So we anticipate that making these changes will still come in under the limited growth threshold set for general funded departments this coming fiscal year.
Way that the calculation is typically approached, and again, we'll follow up with a little bit more detail, is that we do not use the limited growth percentage. The limited growth percentage will not include this adjustment, because this adjustment is occurring, honestly, it's being implemented in alignment with the start of that fiscal year. So we'll walk through that more in the budget process, and I'll follow up with you offline with a little bit more detail. But we are trying to make sure that there's still a range of growth that can be afforded even with this increase.
Okay. Yeah, well, we'll look forward to seeing that. I mean, I don't want to give the impression because I'm asking questions about the budget that I don't support these changes. I mean, the district attorney's office provides such important services for our community. It is absolutely necessary for us to take care of the employees there so that they can continue to provide excellent service. So I'm just thinking ahead to budget week. So with that, are there any further questions or comments?
Can I make the motion then?
Please do.
Move approval of document number 2026-278, a collective bargaining agreement between Deschutes County and the Deschutes County District Attorneys Association for the term July 1st, 2026 through June 30th, 2029, as ratified by the association.
And I will second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Thank you for the effort and professionalism in this operation.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have
With
to
that,
vote. We have to vote.
You can move if you want, but
Let's see if it's going to pass.
We're still going to vote. Commissioner Dare,
Yes.
Commissioner DeBonne,
Yes.
and chair votes yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the, yes, ratification before the deadline.
Okay. Item number 7, consideration of using pro-budget funds or other identified county revenue to pay an additional $2,104 for the Gales land use application fee.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, I'm Eric Kropp, Deputy County Administrator. In December, the Board of County Commissioners approved a grant agreement to the Gales for up to $25,000 to help pay for their land use application. The $25,000 was also recommended by the Crow Board, and the $25,000 was based on an estimate for the land use fees. The Gales have submitted their land use application, and the actual cost is the $27,100
No, it's $104.
$27,104, which is roughly $2,000 more than the grant agreement. So we just wanted to bring it back to the board for discussion.
And our building department can't just forgive that?
Correct.
I would love to hear a little bit more about our fee waiver policy. I know we do have a fee waiver policy, and why this application is not eligible.
Sure. Peter Gutowski, our Community Development Director, is joining me. We'll answer that question.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Peter Gutowski, Community Development Director. The Community Development Department does have a fee waiver policy. We talked about this in December as well. There's two approaches. One, if a party is indigent, they can respectfully request a waiver for an application that would allow them to come into compliance with Deschutes County Code. The other pertains to nonprofit organizations that were unaware of responsibility to comply with Deschutes County Code. In this case, there is not a nonprofit organization, and the fact that they need a zone change out of the exclusive farm use zone doesn't qualify for a circumstance where they're unaware of code provisions that, in this case, the Gales are interested in establishing a homeless shelter. So they don't qualify there. And respectfully, we've communicated that to the Gales, to the Board of County Commissioners on a couple of occasions here at a regular meeting, and also through correspondences through email.
This project, I can almost guarantee you, will eventually involve nonprofit organizations. So if that partnership had already been developed at this point, would they qualify for this nonprofit fee waiver?
Yeah, we would respectfully, even if there was a nonprofit affiliation, the fact that the internal policy specifies that the fee waiver comes into play when they did not anticipate that a code provision was applicable to their desired outcome. In this case, they need a zone change out of EFU. That has to occur before any entitlement that would allow a homeless shelter to be sited on the subject property. So respectfully, I'm not confident that even if they had that arrangement, and I understand there's a possibility that could occur in the future, they still need a zone change out of EFU. And so the few times that we've offered this over the years has been a watershed council that was doing restoration work and didn't realize they didn't have the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife involved to certify that restoration project. I think those have been rare examples where this waiver would have come into place. That's different than a zone change out of EFU, which is extremely complicated, could be a matter of first impression. So by all means, the board can provide direction to change our fee waiver policy, but this is the policy that we've had in place for years.
Well, I would flag for future discussion the idea of modifying that fee waiver policy. I could see, other examples of land use applications coming forward to support some kind of important public purpose. And it would be the partnership, the collaborative thing to do for the county to be able to offer fee waivers on such projects in the future.
Respectfully, I think that when that conversation occurs, the Board of County Commissioners wants to be very, very careful, and the Community Development Department needs to be very, very careful. Respectfully, our department has to remain impartial on land use applications, whether it's a homeless shelter or whether it's a viable community project. Those are subjective weights and values that are put on land use applications. And if the Community Development Department, through direction of the board, were to provide fee waivers for certain types of applications versus others, I, on the record, would and need to do so, that could raise to light bias, and it could potentially raise to light biases not only for CDD, but biases to the board. And as the board is well aware, land use now it's really, I say this figuratively, it's a contact sport. It's very complex, it's very litigious, and I worry about these types of preferences being placed on certain applications removing the impartiality that the board needs to have if an application is appealed to the board, or in the case of zone changes out of EFU, the board has to hear those decisions. And so the board can choose the types of fee waivers they want to direct CDD to have, but as I'm doing today, and I would do it tomorrow, I have to put this on the record because CDD needs to remain impartial, whether it's for building permits, on-site wastewater permits, or land use. And this is a very problematic circumstance that opens up the gray area in ways that we've never encountered previously. So I do so respectfully, knowing that there are notable community projects that have tremendous benefits, not only for Deschutes County in partnership with our cities and our region, but this can present some real vulnerabilities, and legal may have other perspectives, but as a CDD, I need to put that on the record.
Well, I would just like to say that we already have a fee waiver policy. So we're not talking about picking winners and losers, in terms of fee waivers, from scratch. We are talking about modifying an existing fee waiver policy. And I want to draw a distinction between application fees and impartial review of an application. I am not asking for anyone to reduce the rigor of review of an application. Whether a fee waiver is granted or not, I would expect CDD to review an application, to the full extent of process and law that is required and expected. But the fee that you charge people for that application is another question. So I just want to point that out. And I also want to point out that in our fee structure for community development, we already have bias. When someone comes in with what we expect to be a contentious application, and we change who has to put down the money for a hearings officer process, that is bias in favor of certain kinds of applicants.
We do, Mr. Chairman, we don't have a deposit anymore for hearings officers provisions. And with all due respect, as the community development director, I will respectfully acknowledge that the fact that the community development department is a fee-dependent department, the fact that we charge fees for land use applications that explicitly specify what's permissible from a land use standpoint for rural development, that is not bias. And the community development department, as you articulated, treats every application the same. There is criteria and land use applications, essentially for those that are here in the audience and watching remotely, requires interpretation, and that offers some discretion, and that renders land use applications to a land use decision. So the fact that we have fees that pay for our staff, that pay for hearings officers, in no way biases in outcome. The state land use system dictates which types of applications are permissible in the rural county, subject to certain criteria. So I think it's important to clarify those remarks as the community development director.
Having a deposit upon applications that are going to create a burden for the county, a financial burden for the county, and then removing that deposit is providing a financial preference to an applicant, okay, which is exactly what we are talking about right now with this application and the idea of having a fee waiver.
I respectfully disagree, Commissioner.
That's fine.
So I support that it is a fee dependent department. This is a policy discussion that should be at the board. I don't support the fact that we're challenging community development here right now. The fees are reviewed annually in our budgets, and it is a contact sport. And when you think about the contact sport, it isn't just football; it's more like rugby, where they're not even wearing helmets. So this is really interesting days right now. So, there's a solution that's been presented to us here also.
I want to go back to Eric. Eric,
Well, that solution that's been presented,
the 20, could I ask Eric just to get back to originally the Crow Board said up to 25,000. They give us that and then we agreed with that. Is there not more funding in their budget in order to add this extra $2,104?
Yes, the Crow budget can absorb the additional cost.
It can.
Yes.
Okay.
Another consideration for the commissioners is if the commission wants to move forward with this approval, whether or not to make it contingent upon the Crow Board approving the additional amount. The next Crow Board meeting is Monday, April 27th. But to
Okay.
answer your question, the Crow budget can absorb this additional cost.
And I was just thinking about it. I realize the Gales have been so engaged in this for so long. It's driving in on the east side of Bend, and what are they going to do? They're going to go by an operation that I can only hope looks appropriate. You know, it's like, oh gosh, what are we doing?
yeah. So what I was going to say is that we have empowered the Crow Board to oversee the funds that were provided for the state for the Crow. And the Crow has been busy allocating out funds for various important purposes to create pathways out of homelessness and reduce homelessness in our community. So, I don't think it would be appropriate for the board to make a decision on spending additional funds from the Crow budget without the Crow Board being able to weigh in on that. I did notify the chairs of the Crow Board that this was going to be on our agenda today. It's possible that one of them is watching today. And if so, I would like to give them the opportunity to say something about the Crow budget if they'd like to.
Stephanie, did you need to say something?
Oh, no, I just came up in case there were questions for legal, on the whole fee waiver, bias, all of that, but it sounds like we've moved on. So unless there are any questions, I will, take my seat in the audience again. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie.
You're welcome.
Okay. Well, if there's no one from the Crow Board who is online to discuss this with us, then we can proceed with the discussion.
So no one from the Crow Board is available.
We didn't formally invite them. I just
Okay.
let people know that this was going to be on the agenda.
Right.
If we actually wanted to have a discussion with the Crow, we should have formally invited them.
Okay.
I think it would be reasonable for the county to consider finding $2,104 or somewhere else within the county budget, because speaking for the Crow's budget is, I'm not sure, our decision or our decision to make a loan. And I do, there was a mention of how long the Gales have been waiting to proceed with their project, proceed with their application. And in my opinion, the county played an important role in making that process so long. We helped make the process so long that the original estimate that the Community Development Department gave us oh, this might be between $20,000 and $25,000. When I asked the Crow for funds, maybe 2 years ago, $25,000 was the ceiling on what the fee was going to be.
They've been in the process for a long time, and they actually probably could have put in an application earlier. So, Peter, I don't want to come down on your department.
I think it's helpful to clarify the process. This is not a community development department.
Yeah, no, and I'm not saying that it was the community development department that slowed this process down. I'm saying that it was actually the Board of Commissioners. From the time that we were considering trying to cover the cost of the application fee to now, it was various points of inaction by the Board of Commissioners that have made the money, the availability of those funds, uncertain a number of times over the past couple of years, which is why the fee is now $2,104 more than the original estimate. My fellow commissioners will recall a number of times when we discussed this kind of a funding allocation, and a number of times where people said, well, I want to hear more. I want to bring the Gales back to talk about this more, where we didn't make the decisions that could have expedited this process.
I did ask the governor to give special approval because she was trying to help the homeless people. And I asked her if she would do an exception. And that was several years ago. And she ignored my request. So anyway, I am now looking at how it looks on the east side of Redmond coming into town on Highway 26. I'm just wondering, Deschutes County, what are we all about?
I'll remind you both that the Gales property is probably the only potential outlet when we eventually get to the point where the county and the city want to clear the TSSA. I don't know, other shelter opportunities are pretty full. So if we want to have a reasonably objective alternative for people to go to, and what the Gales have proposed is actually, in my opinion, way better than the TSSA as a viable pathway for people to exit homelessness, then we need to be thinking now about what is going to happen when we want to clear the TSSA.
I thought in the TSSA, I thought we were providing social services in order to help people either rejoin their families, transition back to housing. I thought that's what we're providing in the current TSSA, so that the residents there can actually do something positive.
Yeah, no, I think the case management happening at the TSSA is pretty good.
Okay, no, but what is pretty good? Does that mean that 100 people have moved on? Do we know how many people have actually been successful in moving successfully to housing? Such as we know our Veterans Village is successful. We know that they have really done a great job. So I commend them.
County and city staff are tracking numbers to some extent, but I just want to clarify that what I meant when what the Gales family is proposing is way better is the physical layout. Out in the TSSA, there are people widely dispersed across a huge number of acres,
Right.
and providing porta potties, providing water, potable water, providing security in that kind of a setting It will cost way more than providing some minimal infrastructure and security in a concentrated, developed area that was purpose-built for people to camp in.
Originally, I'd said, okay, let's have the TSSA on 40 acres, but no, they did little groups here and a little group there, and then they said that added up to 40. And then they're doing the same thing with the 20 acres. Yeah, they're not paying property taxes. They're living on public lands, and when you say something and it's not actually taken as you meant it, it's fascinating. So I can say that about the TSSA. They're still, yeah, they're clearly utilizing way more than 40 acres. And then they're going to perhaps utilize more than 20 acres. What, end of June? Yeah. Not exactly what I was thinking of.
In terms of exits from the TSSA, there is a City of Bend data dashboard. I just pulled it up and they report 38 exits from the site.
Exits means though, where did they go? Did they actually go to housing? Did they go to Shepherd's House in Redmond? I mean, they left, but where did they go?
Means they went to housing or shelter.
Or shelter.
More people than that have left the TSSA, but those are the ones who went to long-term.
That's correct.
Okay, well, yeah, there's a little deviation into the TSSA. You know, I only wanted to mention it because, again, this potential project at the Gales property is important for us to be able to close the TSSA.
Chair, is Molly Heiss on the Crow board?
Yes.
That's okay. So she is now available online. If you asked, and Eric has confirmed that she is available now. If you would like to recognize her.
I would, yes. Molly, who serves as one of the chairs of the Crow. Do you have any thoughts or input to share with us at this time?
Thank you, Commissioner Chang. There we go. I was rejoining as a panelist, so I missed the cue that you gave me. Just wanting to represent the Coordinated Houseless Response Office Board here in saying that we're in support of the Gales property project and the rezone to be used for our unhoused population as a resource to continue raising stability for those folks and helping to clear out TSSA when the time should arrive. Our investment is fairly finite because the Crow does not receive revenue above and beyond what was outlined for us in the EO orders and the governor's appointment. So just wanting to recognize that Commissioner Chang mentioned there was an additional charge that was fairly small, but that the Crow funds have been fully allocated to projects across Central Oregon or across Deschutes County.
Thank you, Molly. Are there any questions for Molly about the Crow while we have her with us? And again, any decision by the Crow would, by the Crow board would have to wait until Crow board meeting in a few weeks.
So I think we should hear back from them.
We can certainly add this as a discussion point. We're doing some agenda setting tomorrow afternoon for our 427 meeting, and we'll add this as a circling back. But as mentioned before, all of the Crow funds have been appropriated for through the end of this year.
Including the interest amount that Eric said actual to date interest $16,935 according to our memo.
Okay. I don't have that memo in front of me, so that's something that we'll certainly explore during the board meeting.
It says the Crow has Fund 205 has funds available, including 20,000 budgeted in interest, and that's your interest figure to date. So
okay.
That's on our memo.
Thank you, Commissioner Adair, for bringing that to my attention.
Yeah, good.
As discussed, the Molly can't speak for the Crow Board or until there is a board vote. And that would not happen until April 27th.
Would the board like staff to resubmit this item for consideration on April 29th, which is the Wednesday after the Crow Board meeting?
That would be appropriate.
All right.
Or what? It's 2 weeks away?
Yes.
Okay, so in 2 weeks. Sure. We've been waiting for how many years? 2 weeks, I don't think, yes.
TSSA closure date is supposedly mid 2027 right now. So every week that we delay this application is also another week that a project at the Gales property will not be available. Just want everyone to be clear on that. Okay.
So one note, that looks like the application has been submitted. I spoke to Mr. Gales this last week and he said there's notification on the property, I think. Is that done by the applicant? Like that, the post out there saying there's a pending land use application?
It does, Commissioner DeBonne, and if I may, I just want to provide an update for the board and any parties interested in this topic. The Gales submitted their application on February 19th of this year. The application was deemed incomplete less than a month later due to not having a traffic study and not having addressed certain criteria. Yesterday, my understanding is they submitted another supplement, and I believe the traffic study has been accepted by our senior transportation planner. The other additional findings are currently being evaluated. So to the extent, I just want to offer that the application as of now is kind of, I don't know, maybe it's coming out of incomplete status outside of the fee piece. So I think just important to put that on the record.
Thanks, Peter.
And so notification has gone to property owners in the vicinity?
Correct. As soon as the application was received, notice of application was sent per our procedures code to everybody within 750 feet of the subject property. There's a sign out there. Yep.
Even though it's in an incomplete status, that process started.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
But how many neighbors were notified? Because 750 feet, when you have that big a property, is not that much.
Correct. I mean, it's probably very finite, but nonetheless, that's why there's the sign there. Once a public hearing is identified, a date that's available, presumably as soon as June, there's once the application is deemed complete, there's a 35-day notice to the Department of Land Conservation and Development. Notice of public hearing goes out back to those that are within that 750-foot distance. So you're looking at June at the earliest to get that scheduled. But the point I was going to make, there's also when the public hearing is scheduled, notice is provided in the paper. So presumably those that are interested in this topic will be alerted kind of in those kind of multiple communication techniques.
We know that notice is still up because I remember when they were putting a marijuana operation down the road from me and the wind blew and the notice left. Yeah, I mean,
the
you've
notice
got to
is-
put the notice up and you have to actually glue it to
The item we were reviewing today was how to pay for the application fee. I think we're getting into the land use application itself, which is, as we just discussed, we don't really want to bias the review process.
I thank you though for those. Thanks, Peter. It's nice to know the story.
Thanks for joining us, Molly.
Thank you, Molly. Okay,
Thank you.
let's go ahead and move on to our next item, which a number of people have been waiting very patiently for. Item number 8, Oregon State Fire Marshal and Model Defense Space Code discussion. Model Defensible Space Code discussion, sorry.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Kyle Collins, Senior Planner. We also have in attendance today joining us online because the pass made it a little bit undrivable.
Oh.
Salem.
Got it.
Chad
Which was nothing. I drove it yesterday.
We have Chad Hawkins here from the Oregon State Fire Marshal's Office. He is an Assistant Chief Deputy. He's going to be giving you kind of the biggest overview of this model defensible space code that we're here to talk about today. But I will start off by just giving some context while we're here. This all started with the passage of Senate Bill 83 last summer, in June of last year. And Senate Bill 83, among a variety of things that it did, was allow a set of rules and standards that could be adopted by local governments for wildfire mitigation purposes. One of those, the board has already undertaken and ultimately approved, which are the R327 building code standards. The board approved those back in January. And at the board's direction, we're here to talk about the second main area, which is adoption of a model defensible space code. Now, I'm not here proposing any type of formal program. We're not bringing an actual adoption ordinance or anything of that nature here today. It's intended to be purely informational. So obviously, we have State Fire Marshal staff here to give us an overview because they're the ones developing that code and ultimately overseeing it. But any future discussions for adoption here at a local level or just broader community conversations would ultimately be undertaken just at the board's direction. So with that, I will obviously take any questions. Otherwise, I will turn it over to Mr. Hawkins to give us an overview.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Kyle and County Commissioners. For the record, Chad Hawkins, Assistant Chief Deputy State Fire Marshal. I have the pleasure of working with the State Fire Marshal, Mariana Rees-Temple, and Chief Deputy Claire McGrew. Really, when Kyle and I talked prior to this, and Chief Rees-Temple gives her apologies, she was actually going to present with me when we got the invitation, but she had another conflicting appointment come up. So it'll just be me. I don't know if you're disappointed in that or not, but I'm here to answer all the questions you folks have. So as you know, wildfire risk is not new to Oregon, and the defensible space conversation is not new to Central Oregon. It's something a lot of community members are already doing, whether or not a code has actually been in place. And where that was really codified is in Senate Bill 762 when it passed in 2021, subsequent to the 2020 Labor Day fires, where we had 1.2 million acres approximately burn in about 72 hours, and the loss of 4,000 primary residences and 6,000 accessory structures across the state of Oregon. So the monumental omnibus bill, Senate Bill 762, was passed, which subsequently required that map that I know many of you, I have been on town hall speaking tours across the state over the last many years that I've been able to speak with you one-on-one. Subsequently, there was the wildfire hazard map, the defensible space code, the home hardening provisions within the building codes division, all mandated on those state agencies to carry out those functions. Subsequently, and fast forwarding through multiple pieces of legislation since, culminating in Senate Bill 83, as Kyle alluded to, the defensible space code with the rollback of the map is now available, or shortly will be available for local adoption, voluntary local adoption only. What it obligates OSFM to do is very similar to what the Building Codes Division has done prior to basically 2016 and had in place for available local adoption, is create a model code. The defensible space code is obviously within the purview of the State Fire Marshal. Develop that code, bring together a rules advisory committee, basically those stakeholders, non-governmental, public-private partnerships we have, members of the Fire Service, Fire Chiefs Association, practitioners, and develop a code that stays within the framework of the legislation and provides a foundation for local entities essentially to adopt it and then subsequently enforce it and carry it out as they deem fit. And so where we're at today is we're in the final phases. The defensible space code model language has been completed. The Rules Advisory Committee just finalized that work. And now we have filed the rulemaking notice with Secretary of State to basically say, this is the defensible space code. This is the language. It's the obligation of the local municipality to adopt that code. And then if they deem necessary, or if they want to make that defensible space code more stringent, there's some requirements that it has to be within the framework of the International Wildland Urban Interface Code, which is the foundational creation of the defensible space code as it's existed in draft form for about the last 4 years. With that, as you all know, this has been an evolution, is how we're adapting, because we were kind of at the behest of the map and its applicability of where that defensible space would apply if subsequently, like I said, that map were still to be in existence. Now that defensible space, when it's adopted locally, not only are they responsible for the adoption of that code, but identification on properties as to where that defensible space code would apply through whatever local risk modeling or tools they want to use or not, and just say it applies within the city limits. It will be basically all encompassing up to that local municipality to determine how it applies.
So Chad,
yeah.
Commissioner DeBone, you're just getting a sense of place here. So you're saying, you know, them and they, but you're state fire marshal representative talking to a board of commissioners, and we have the authority to adopt this. So, I mean, it's we, you know, I'm just thinking the sense of this, you know, it's not abstract because this is being laid on the desk of a local jurisdiction right now to say, we've got a great idea. How about you adopt this? I'm just trying to get a feel for it.
In the sense of, yes, you will have the ability to do it, as will local fire departments, local municipalities such as planning districts, building codes divisions, various local authorities having jurisdiction. It actually doesn't define what the municipality is. So it could be a county board of commissioners, or it could be all the way down to the local levels in cities, counties, and even within the disciplines within those jurisdictions. And so it's very, very broad. And so I was trying to be intentional with my words to be very open, but yes, you are the ones that have the ability to kind of look at that and evaluate it. And OSFM is just essentially here to maintain the defensible space code language. Once that local municipality, such as yourself, adopts it, that will be submitted to OSFM. If there's any additional language as far as if you want to be more restrictive, it requires OSFM's approval. And then we would say basically approved, post on our website, this county, this city, this municipality has adopted the defensible space code. Please reach out to them as far as requirements, enforcement actions, things along those lines.
Great. So just a little, so cities and counties, is who else? Would there be
any local jurisdiction? It does not define.
But the only other one that might come up, just to provide a little more context, is something like Metro might be
okay
in the mix here.
So for Deschutes County proper, it's either one of the 4 incorporated cities or the county proper.
Correct.
And we'd be representing destination resorts and urban unincorporated communities, Tumalo, Terrebonne, and everything. So just making sure I'm real clear, because this is people are engaged and it's interesting. So
sure, and I think that's a good point.
One other local jurisdiction are fire
Go
districts, and so this is not something that is available for fire districts to adopt.
It is available for the local fire districts to adopt.
Under current discussion here right now, though, we're just talking about adoption at the county level, specifically at the Deschutes County level.
Well, so, I mean, is that pretty black and white? A fire district can adopt it, because as I say, now I just think of, how the fire districts because we have unprotected lands too. So I'm just thinking big picture. So it's good to get a good foundation, because this is what we need to know right now.
Yeah.
So what about what City of Sisters has done with their home hardening, et cetera? Are they doing anything with defensible space at this moment in time?
Yes, they do have a defensible space provision within their planning department. Yes.
They do, and it's part of their new rules.
Yeah, for new development. I think that's a interesting concept. Again, trying to be neutral again as the state agency. There is different opportunities with the map rolling back. It really created some gray area, I'll say, onto how to apply the defensible space components. R327 and home hardening is very specific because it only applies to residential structures. Defensible space does not differentiate between residential or commercial. It essentially, anything that's given a certificate of occupancy is essentially or potentially going to be encompassed in that defensible space code and its application. There's also not questions, but considerations that Deschutes County could look at new construction and the applicability of defensible space only on new construction versus retroactive application, or theoretically a phase-in retroactive application to all structures. Incorporated versus unincorporated, as you have passed in the R327 language with the county ordinance, I think is all on the table. I don't think there are strict black and white parameters when it comes to local adoption and how it's applied locally. That's really left to the locals to be empowered to do that work. I think the only caveat for us is the language is meant to be consistent as far as its application. So if a local municipality wants to be more stringent, that's when it would require the state fire marshal's office to review, approve, and then subsequently send back and say, here you go forth and implement as you deem necessary.
On a different note, I did hear back from your boss this morning, and she said the new funding is coming in monthly and they're finalizing plans for our CWRR 3.0 grant.
Yes.
But she's telling me this grant launch, which could be used for goats, is not going to be available till this fall. Does the state not realize that we are going to be a tinderbox over here, and
Sure.
we need that to be happening like now and not next October, November? I mean,
Can we save discussion of this until after the presentation about the defensible space code?
well, no, I just think it's incredibly, they don't understand that we are a tinderbox, and, to say, well, I can get the money in the fall, please.
But the legislature just passed this new funding program, and it was a big lift. So it taking a little over a year to get it online and to actually amass funds to be able to deploy those funds
You know, it's
is
government.
not unreasonable.
So, pardon me, just one more bit of clarity. I mean, would a fire district be able to adopt this, or this is truly just cities and counties? So just for clarity, because if the conversation's happening here, a city council conversation could happen at a city council. Would a fire district board in their, fire coverage area, would that be a discussion also?
Yes.
That's probably
Go ahead, Kyle.
No, I was just going to say that's probably a question best for Chief Deputy Hawkins here.
He's coming your way.
Yes, you are correct, Commissioner Damone. You, as a fire district, I say you, a fire district could adopt it as they do the state fire code and enforce it as they deem necessary, which is why it's so important to have those established relationships between the cities, counties, municipalities, where the actual implementation of a potential defensible space code would apply, because there are communities such as Sisters who have things in place, and it would behoove everyone in the area that there is some consistency in application versus I would also say generally is a speckled approach, because we know in the wildfire space and a lot of our destructive fires on the west are community-based, and it's community-based resilience that makes fires successful that come through those areas. So the less inconsistency is going to be important, to your point. But yes, fire districts are able to adopt the defensible space code.
Yeah, so it's just a partnership conversation if, who's going to take the lead. And I think it really would step down to the implementation also, hey, we've got a code here. If you're not following the code, who follows up? So I think that's the big discussion.
That's fair. And I'll also, just to circle back a little bit here, because Commissioner Adair brought up the City of Sisters. So the City of Sisters does have an adopted defensible space code. And the way they've chosen to go about this is not the only possible avenue. But the way they've chosen to go about it is really housed within their community development department. So new development, the construction of any type of new building and certain accessory buildings are then subject to defensible space requirements. There's also some requirements in place that fire control plans, these sort of larger guiding documents, are required for things like subdivisions and partitions. So larger chunks of land getting prepared for more intense development. There's requirements that plans be put in place. But specifically for defensible space, that is explicitly tied to development opportunities and new buildings going on landscape.
So the City of Sisters is not doing anything about existing development?
Not currently, to my knowledge. Not at least under the guise of a defensible space code.
Okay.
Can I ask Len a question? I just wondered about, I noticed that they have it 6 feet trimmed up, for trees taller than 18 feet. And I thought I was told it was 8 feet. Is that, do you know what people recommend before this document was done? What they were recommending? I mean, was it 6 or was it 8?
No, it's
'Cause I
always
know
been 6
You're
as far
saying
as,
6 feet here.
yeah, it's always been 6 from the International WUI Code framework. We couldn't be less restrictive, and theoretically, we couldn't be more restrictive when we developed it. So a lot of the model code language was just carried into the code you have in front of you in the memo. The only thing we added, I will say, as far as the consensus group in the RAC, was what we called Oregon best management practices, like identifying fire-resistant fuel, other human developments, different things that should be considered along with this, knowing we couldn't be more stringent or less stringent than the sections identified in the International WUI Code. So it's always been 6 feet, to answer your question.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and let Chief Deputy Hawkins continue to finish his presentation, and then we can ask more questions.
So that would probably be my last piece, is just understanding the dynamics with the different codes and the different standards out there. And just to highlight, folks, when they hear International Wildland Urban Interface Code, there's a nexus to maybe like other areas that are not specific to Oregon as far as how that code would be applied. But doing some understanding of how our model code works, the National Electric Code, the International Fire Code, International Building Code, Residential Code, it all comes from the same International Code Council group. And all of those states, including Oregon, we take those codes, such as the International Fire Code, add Oregon-specific OARs and ORSs, and it becomes the Oregon Fire Code. That's essentially what we did with the International Wildland Urban Interface Code. We take that document, the areas specifically highlighted in Senate Bill 762 and subsequently Senate Bill 83, which said utilize section 603 and 604 of the International Wildland Urban Interface Code. And then we create it, add our specific Oregon language, and then it becomes the Oregon Defensible Space Model Code. So that's like the last part of what I would highlight, Commissioner Chang, but I appreciate the opportunity to present to all 3 commissioners, and open for questions or additional conversations around FUDDI.
Questions?
So is this mature? Is this like going to evolve at all, or is this kind of what's the stability of this chapter that we have in our hand?
Yeah, that's a great question, Commissioner DeBone. So what we do is every 3 years in Oregon, whether you're in the building department, building codes division, or the state fire marshal, our Oregon Fire Code, Wildland Urban Interface Code, Residential Code, it's updated every 3 years at the national level. And then that code will then come to Oregon, and then we see what those updates are, include it into those new standards, and then push it out to our partners that are implementing said code. So it will be updated every 3 years. Many, state agencies sit on those code boards and those subcommittees at the national level. So there is Oregon emphasis with how that gets developed.
So this is the stable version in our hand right now, and then there's just an update procedure in the future. And then would those updates come on automatically, or would those be a decision in the future? I mean, once we opt in, they'll automatically follow the updates?
Correct. Yeah. So every 3 years we'll update it, and we will bring a small group together, because one of the focuses when you talk about that education over enforcement philosophy is we need to train our folks who are enforcing the code or interpreting the code to understand it. So preemptively, usually 6 months to a year before, we'll have what's called the Fire Code Committee, or in this case, the Defensible Space Code Committee, meet, talk about what those updates and changes are, so we can develop training materials for our practitioners, and then subsequently push them out once it's finalized.
What does it say for a jurisdiction? If we say, yes, we'll adopt this chapter 3 years from now, do we ever say, well, yes, we'll adopt the updates, or it's just automatic? I'm looking at
It depends on how you put it in your municipal code, or where it's actually identified.
So that's a choice also then.
That is a choice. So with the building code, for example, which follows a very similar pattern to this, the updates to the code are just adopted automatically at a local level. But you also have the choice of identifying a specific version of the code that you'd like to follow, and then having that be set.
So there's choices in there. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm reading the details of 301.2, and it says 5 feet non-combustible defense space.
Yes.
And it says that you can't put firewood there, but you can put it at 6 feet. That to me, if you have a big pile of firewood, that's going to all blow up. And even having it at 6 feet isn't going to be helpful if there is a fire going through and the wind is blowing. So I don't know.
Commissioner Adair, I couldn't agree with you more. Number
I
one.
see these people that stack their firewood and I'm like, do you think a fireman is going to go in there and save your house? Because that is going to blow up. The juniper stand 3/4 of a mile from my house blew up during the flat fire. When they quit dumping water on it, that whole stand blew up and exploded and started burning towards my house.
No,
yeah.
I appreciate your perspective. I think you're spot on. I think when we look at code standards, and that's something that may be kind of nuanced, but it's, again, important for me to identify that this is a minimum code standard. The fire code is a minimum code standard that says if you don't have, this set of egress pathways in your building, or sprinklers, or fire alarms, or extinguishers, or in this case, defensible space, 5 feet, anything below that, you are theoretically placing yourself or your business or your residents in harm's way. So it can absolutely be expanded. That's more of that minimum threshold, 0 to 5 feet, because what we know transmissibility wise on large scale fires, whether it be, Lahaina, the 2020 Labor Day fires, Palisades, you're talking 75% plus homes are lost due to ember ignition, not necessarily.
They blow. They blow for
flame contact. It's ember ignition. So it's those embers or transmittable fuels right up to the house that allow that fire to spread from structure to structure, or structure vegetation to the house that's right against it. So I appreciate your comments, but that's why it's 0 to 5 feet. That's a really strong national standard amongst all practitioners in the wildland fire space.
Well, then what about wood furniture that's outside?
Non-combustible.
Okay.
Fire Code 100.
Well, yeah, no, Fire Code 100 actually saved my friend's his house. But having a fire go around my house originally in 93, it was saved because we had our outside sprinklers on.
Mhm.
And, and I got all my wood furniture in the house before I left. So, yeah, it's, people just don't seem to understand. It's when the wind is blowing. And remember September, that fire,
Yes, ma'am.
those fires were awful because we had that tremendous wind.
I had the unfortunate pleasure of being the state duty officer during the 2020 Labor Day fires. And so that is been in my memory and will be for a very, very, very long time, having to navigate some of those conversations. But that being said, what you as a county are doing, quite frankly, you are forward thinking when it comes to the defensible space conversation. You have the home hardening provisions. And they are both steps in a cog in a wheel that needs to be all encompassing when it comes to that wildfire preparedness and resilience space, if we're going to reduce some of those losses during some of those large scale wildfires. The flat fire was a great positive example of taking landscape resiliency, property level actions, community-based actions, whether it be the fire departments, local community organizations coming together. And I really always highlight approximately 800 homes within the fire footprint of the flat fire, and 5 were lost. And that is a dramatic shift on some of these large scale fires we've seen over the last few years, when you can show true community resilience, response, and preparedness all coming together with that home hardening, defensible space components.
And I want to hopefully BLM will hear, they may have some extra equipment for our rangeland fire protection committee at Lower Bridge, because we've had a lot of fires that have started in Jefferson County, and that, I'm hoping that they've found some equipment there. So we're working on that on a daily basis.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. And some of these may be more for CDD than for Deputy Chief Hawkins. This model code refers to application within designated WUI. And we have done a lot of work, a lot of analysis in the past in the county on, hazard levels and wildland urban interface. We've had to identify wildland urban interface for various grant funds. but you know, off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you what's in the WUI and what's not in, what's identified as WUI and what's not in Deschutes County for these purposes right now. Can you tell us a little bit about that, Kyle?
Right now, it's currently undefined, really. We would ultimately, if the county chose to move forward in adopting this code or some version of this code, ultimately it would be up to us to identify which areas it would apply. That might apply countywide. We could effectively say the WUI is the entirety of Deschutes County, or it could be more on a parcel by parcel basis or region by region basis. We've obviously done mapping exercises in the past. The Wildfire Mitigation Advisory Committee from back in 2019 went through a pretty rigorous exercise across all of the county to try to identify what would be WUI areas, or at least the highest fire hazard areas. But we do have a definition in the code of what constitutes a WUI, but it's ultimately up to us as the local jurisdiction to interpret that and apply it on the ground where the code would ultimately be in effect.
So there's not a prescribed process for us to draw the WUI in order to be able to adopt this code.
Correct. It's quite open-ended.
Okay. Same question about, you know, that this model code refers to hazard levels. You know, we would also at our discretion.
Correct.
Okay.
I may add, Commissioner Chang, with the hazard levels and those elements of the code, there's it gives you the framework and says you can't be, again, less restrictive, but that doesn't mean you can say, if, as Kyle spoke to, the entire county's WUI, the entire county is going to be at that highest level of hazard, versus that scaled approach. That is open-ended, to Kyle's point, just for clarity.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Thank you. And then Deputy Chief Hawkins, I wanted to ask, you know, as we look at this, I can't help but think about the actual implementation of a code. And you know, if we are just talking about new construction, then you know, our community development department can at least be there on the front end, right? You know, after a house is built 2 years down the road, I don't know whether community development department has regular checkpoints on that property. But if a jurisdiction is interested in adopting this for more than just new development, because, you know, as we all know, there's a whole lot of us who live here already. And, you know, as we heard this morning from some of our public comments, it really helps if your neighbors have done the work to make your home safer, even if you've already done the work yourself. So, can you point us to any examples of jurisdictions who have adopted something like this defensible space code, you know, for all homes, you know, or all properties, and how they do it, how they actually implement, you know, kind of do inspections, do, you know, compliance and things like that?
Sure. I can speak to it from a state level. In Oregon specifically, we would have been the second state in the union that adopts a statewide defensible space code, the first being California. California's done it since, I believe it was the 60s, and their defensible space code was actually built the opposite of what it ends up being today, which is you were required to have defensible space around your house so that if you had a structural fire, it wouldn't spread to the vegetation and subsequent timber. That is obviously switched as we built into the wildland urban interface. So California is the biggest and strongest model out there. They've done it for a long time. Theirs is 100 feet of defensible space required in any area, irregardless of level of hazard in that state responsibility area. So if you're in the low, moderate, high, whatever category, you still have to have 100 foot of defensible space. And then obviously subsequently they have the home hardening standards. The defensible space inspections, they do have staff that primarily do defensible space inspections across the state. There's several hundred of them. That being said, there are multiple million of units that they have to inspect. And so they are typically looking at inspections on a 6-month to 1-year basis, as in they will look at a house prior to that fire season, and then subsequently the next year before the next fire season, they're going to do an inspection. Speaking from my past, I used to work for CAL FIRE several 25 years ago, and did those inspections myself, and can tell you it is part of the culture and understanding that defensible space, regardless where you live in California, is something to be done. Implementation can be pretty difficult. And so when we were looking at it from a statewide level for the first time here in Oregon, introducing that subsequent to Senate Bill 762 passing, we were looking at a phase-in period because, again, it would have applied retroactively across the state to both new construction, existing residential, and on both commercial and residential primary structures that were given a certificate of occupancy. So not accessory dwelling buildings, not anything, barns, sheds, shops, things of that sort. It is only applicable, again, to those buildings that were given a certificate of occupancy. And we were going to do a 2-year, approximate 2 to 3 year phase-in period. We didn't obviously dial that down because it went away. But the focus was to educate over enforcement, get folks to understand, get that buy-in, to highlight the importance of community resilience. If you do it, you increase your chance 1 to 5% in a destructive wildfire. If you and your neighbor, you go up another 5%, and subsequently as it goes out within the community. And so that's what we were really focused on, is that educational philosophy of it's not your risk or my risk, it's our risk and our community's risk that we are reducing collectively. And so we were developing a process, but I would say California is the first. Oregon is still going to be the second, even if it is a voluntary code. Colorado is working on one right now, but very much in the infancy, going through some of the mapping exercises and defensible space code stuff we were about 3 years ago. So there's not a great model out there, but as I've highlighted to Kyle, all of our fire service and community partners out there, I've spoke to the mayor of Sisters several times, and the community planning director in Sisters as they went to adopt this. We're here to help. We're here to navigate things as best we can, knowing you are gonna, have the enforcement and the regulatory component of it. But I guess that's my best answer, Commissioner Chang.
Yeah. So, I'm very interested in this model defensible space code, and for both new and existing development, our whole built environment, because that's what's actually going to make us safer. But I definitely, this question of where the capacity to do inspections, to do compliance is going to be built, how we pay for it. It is a really big question. And so I was just hoping to, that there might be examples or models for us to look at from other places. But if you have any ideas about that, kind of within the local community setting, we have fire districts, we have city and county governments. If you have any ideas on, what that might look like, a local inspection and compliance capacity, I'd be interested in hearing that. The other question I would ask is, do you see the state offering any financial support to help build up that capacity at the local level in the communities that do go in this direction?
Yeah, great questions. I'll take the first one and say consistency is key. And that's one of the things I think highlighting the progressive defensible space kind of home hardening philosophy of Deschutes County. I think that's very important. You folks are in the forefront of some of these conversations, and you're going to probably be the example you're looking for. I'll just say that. And everyone's going to see what you do and then probably subsequently make some decisions. But that being said, I think consistency in that relationship building, you guys have great relationships with your communities already. And I think identifying an opportunity to collectively apply what would probably be not negative, but less favorable is when you start having having a speckled approach to application in theory. If you have one community adopt, one community don't, another community adopts, and then you start having this overlapping approach where the wildfire risk collectively across that group is going to be the same, but the resilience or the preparedness maybe within those communities now may be reduced in some areas. And so consistency, to your point, in application and developing some sort of countywide or working with your local partners, a philosophy or an opportunity to do it collectively is going to benefit the most. And then you have the other side of it, which you folks have already kind of identified, which is the home hardening element for new construction. Communities that adopt, other communities that don't adopt. You have, home builders and things like that that are going to have different applications in different communities, and subsequently have a little bit of burden where they drive 5 miles down the road, it might not be the same application as if it would be in one area. So again, consistency is, I think, super important when we talk about community wildfire resilience. Secondarily, your financial question, through the legislation that passed in 2025, it's the first time in Oregon's history that the state fire marshal will be given funding for mitigation around defensible space and a home hardening grant opportunity in perpetuity. So in 762, we had, as a state agency and other state agencies such as ODF, were given a lot of one-time funding to start and initiate programs, implement programs that had to do with fuels reduction and defensible space assessments and things like that. But it was one time, and those funds have been exhausted. How do we maintain knowing that fuel regenerates, programs need to be consistent, because fires don't occur every year. They may be every other year, but on the same pieces of ground. So the funding we have in perpetuity is collecting 10% of the rainy day fund, I think 10% of 20% of the state's rainy day fund. And then it's the oral nicotine tax. So oral nicotine is now taxed 52 cents a pack, and that goes to, so ZIN, if you're familiar with that, goes to wildfire preparedness between OSFM and the Department of Forestry. Department of Forestry is on landscape scale mitigation. OSFM is focused on community and the built environment, resilience, and wildfire preparedness. Those grants are getting close to your comments and Commissioner Adair's comments. They are being developed. One of the things we wanted to do is, knowing this is a long-term program as a state, was get feedback from our constituents, our non-governmental, our governmental entities. And so we held listening and understanding tours with several hundred of our stakeholders over about 7 meetings, where we said, hey, this is the allocation of funds we are going to get. We know we have to do certain things, like we have to have a home hardening grant program. What does that look like? We have to have a defensible space program. What does that look like? And then identify paths forward, develop the grants, and initiate them. And I know we are getting close to rolling those grants out. I do anticipate by the end of the year something being rolled out. It's not my division, but I've been a part of a lot of conversations. I know we have been in conversations with AOC on what the eventual grants may look like. And they are going to be around physical activities, though. They're going to be around defensible space projects, community mitigation activities, updating community wildfire preparedness plans. And then the big chunk is going to be the home hardening, offering home hardening opportunities to local residents, and then working with builders, landscapers, arborists, and make sure they're certified to the appropriate defensible space standards, and send those folks out within communities to do some of this good work. That being said, original 762 had focused funding once the code was to be passed to assist with enforcement. When the map was rolled back and in subsequent Senate Bill 83, it removed all the language to assist with enforcement and implementation of a defensible space code. Okay.
So in order to have some specific pots or specific, programs within a grant, to support this kind of inspection and compliance capacity, we may need new legislation, or we just need to advocate to the people who are planning out the grant programs right now.
Yeah, I think there's probably some creative conversations that can can take place as to how that funding would be used if you were awarded a grant through our new grant program. Obviously, there's going to be a big piece of wildfire risk, social vulnerability, and inequity that focuses those funds to, I would say, generally those areas that see those types of things. But yes, to your point, there's nothing specifically in the legislation that allows us to say, here's an FTE to go do defensible space inspections, for example. But I think there's opportunities to get creative with defensible space programs, initiatives, and things of the like, and still make it successful.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Further questions? Yeah, I still have more, but
We've got some communities that have trees. What about tree spacing requirements? As in, I mean, I'm envisioning a community with ponderosas that are, you know, a little more dense than maybe a forester would do it, but nobody wants to cut them down. Any thoughts along that path?
Yeah, no, that was a big conversation, obviously, as we went through this. I think the biggest thing is trees can be good in fire. They're not always the enemy. And in most cases, unless it's a juniper, I'll throw that out there.
Thank you.
Agreed.
So I would say trees are good. Trees have withstood fire for millennia. And that is part of the natural, I would say, bioenvironment that we live in. Fire is normal. Lightning strikes have happened for millennia. And so making sure that we have less transmittability from tree to tree or from ground to tree, as in you get to that 6 foot limbing versus the crown spacing of approximately 10 feet. That being said, we know we're not always going to achieve that 10-foot crown spacing. But I think that, again, at the local level, if you were to implement something like that, you're not moonscaping. And if anyone could ever be an
I don't think that's the issue. I think it's more like, you know, we've got some communities with truly just ponderosas, you know, and you drive down the road and you're like, wow, there's a lot of ponderosas here, which has a, you know, 2-inch thick bed of needles unless you clean them up too. But some of those ponderosas are close to a house. I mean, there are probably some that are close. Are we looking at making a requirement that they need to be removed? I guess
we
that's
like to
what
call it the 10-foot bubble around the house. So 10-foot overhanging limbs. You know, theoretically, there's going to be houses that have already been constructed with ponderosas through their deck, and have created the hole in the deck. The tree grows. It's been there forever. I think those
We've
are
got a restaurant with a ponderosa right in the middle of it, right here.
I think those
From
are still going to exist.
1937.
You may evaluate what the transmittability factors are. So we say 6 foot of vertical fuel limbing, for example. Well, if it's through a deck, I think the 6 foot measurement would take place probably from the deck or even from the roof line or the sill line higher than 6 feet, just to be on the safe side. But you are looking at that 10-foot bubble around roofs, 10 foot around chimneys. We wouldn't like ponderosas next to the house, but at the same time, we know those have been there for years. And if they are maintained properly, I think you can be in a really good place. The pine needles that you allude to, you're going to be fighting those forever, for millennia. But we're not looking to remove them necessarily.
Just that step where it's like you walk, there, as I say, Ponderosa Pine, Southern Deschutes County, Black Butte Ranch proper. You drive down the road and you're like, oh, wow, yeah, you could open this up more. But they're all healthy and they don't seem to be crowding themselves out, and they might not fit the code.
Yeah, and I think, another thing is the moisture down at the fuel beds. If you look at that lower level and without crown coverage, actually you can have some of those drying out effects underneath the crown. So necessarily, again, trees are good, trees are positive, as long as they're maintained. And yes, thinning would be beneficial in some areas, to your point, but no moonscaping. And then those, I would say those caveats that, trees right up to houses. Yes, I mean, the best case scenario, if you want it to be the most resilient, you're removing that tree. But in lieu of that, there are opportunities to make it just close to that resilient if you take some measures.
Great, thank you. And then one other quick question. Do you have a feel for how CAL FIRE was funded? I mean, and I'm thinking, we're local jurisdictions, cities and counties. If we adopt a code, it's like, oh, congratulations, we're a partner in this, but your local jurisdiction needs to come up with dollars, which I think Commissioner Chang was asking questions around.
Yeah, I mean, then that's Frankly, that's one of the reasons why I was way more excited about getting the state wildfire hazard maps right and having the state implement defensible space and home hardening requirements, just because then the state would be involved in paying for that whole inspection and compliance capacity that we need.
Yeah, so it's just an unknown at this point. But yeah, CAL FIRE, do you have a feel for that? Just big picture, what was the funding mechanism?
Obviously they have multiple, they have the Board of Forestry as well down there, that they report to. And one of the funding streams came out early. Now this was, probably 2003, 4, 5, somewhere in there. There was a state responsibility tax levied on all properties, and I believe it's $100 per parcel, per contiguous parcel that's got a structure on it, pays into this, and that is just to fund those mitigation type activities.
Yeah. So I mean, there's some
What they do
conversation
though,
there.
is they come to your house every year. They have like a page and a half and they do little check marks, everything that you need to do.
Yep.
And if you don't take care of it, they're going to charge you 5 times more for that cleanup. So, yeah, every year, wherever I lived in LA County, I had them at my door. They did an inspection. And now, of course, we have insurance companies in Oregon that are inspecting people because so many times people are not getting insurance where we live now. They're not happy. And they're going to give feedback to homeowners also. So, but no, they would charge you quite a bit more. So I would think if somebody didn't do one of the checked items on their list, that CAL FIRE would have made some money on it. Maybe they wouldn't have, but maybe they would.
No,
Sounds like
there are local
Sounds like a good
municipalities
incentive
that did
program
that.
to get people to do the work.
Well,
Yeah,
every year the fire department came to your house every single year.
Maybe I can provide a little bit
Mhm.
of perspective here too. I think some jurisdictions, not so much in Oregon, but in other places have come up with relatively creative ways to trigger these specific requirements. So obviously the big one we've talked about up front, which is the City of Sisters doing, is we're talking about new development. Other jurisdictions have taken an approach where transfers of property, so sales of properties, is actually when the code comes into effect. So you actually have to provide a proof that before a transaction is finalized, that you've evaluated the property, done the work, and had it inspected. A very similar approach takes place in certain communities in Colorado, where short-term rental licensing is actually what triggers the requirement. And so it's not necessarily that this code has to be housed solely or only within community development. In fact, maybe it doesn't need to be in community development at all, but that is at least just to give you an idea of the universe of possibilities and where this could be put on the ground and how it might be evaluated.
Great point.
Commissioner Dare mentioned insurance. I'd like to actually kind of follow that thought a little farther. As we look at insurers, pulling out of communities across Oregon, dramatically increasing premiums, just essentially seeing places where they've offered policies for years becoming more and more risky to them. I am wondering whether adoption of this kind of a model defensible space code is a way to actually distinguish a community in the eyes of the insurance industry, as like, oh, well, that's a place where we were thinking of not offering policies there anymore, but if they're going to get real serious about this, then that makes us view this community a little bit more favorably. I know that there's been a lot of discussion in Salem, a lot of legislators who've been essentially trying to get that to happen. If people do the work, get the insurance industry to recognize it. But Chief Deputy Hawkins, can you speak to that? I mean, do you think this would actually be a way for our community to signal to insurers, hey, this is actually a place where it's appropriate to continue offering policies and trim our premiums a little bit, in response to the good work we're doing?
Yeah, I think you, Commissioner Chang, you hit the nail on the head. I think any action that's being done at that, what we call, property level, community level, is going to be looked at as positive. We know the Division of Financial Regulation, who oversees like implementation and policy premium issuance by all the insurance providers in Oregon, it's privatized. And so in 2023 or 2024, I can't remember the year, Senate Bill 82 was passed. And that basically required insurers, like we can't tell them to issue premiums, or DFR can't tell them to issue premiums, but it can tell them they should look at property level actions as a consideration for policy premium reductions. And what I can tell you is we've received feedback that we have our defensible space assessment program within the state fire marshal. We have 109 fire agencies amongst the 305 that exist across Oregon, going out and doing property level assessments. You request it through the state. We'll figure out if we have a local partner there, one of our local fire departments to do it. If they're not available, one of my deputy state fire marshals will go out, walk that property with that resident, tell them, hey, you could do this, you could do that. And then they take that tool that's completed in PDF and say, hey, look, I'll just call it a clean bill of health from the local fire department or the state fire marshal, and it's grounded in this code. And they take it to their insurers. And we have heard premiums actually being reduced. Since July of 23, we've done about 6,500 assessments across the state and have received really substantial feedback that it is changing mindsets, especially within maybe some insurance companies, to where they want to know maybe where those assessments have taken place because they're interested in offering business opportunities or policy issuance where maybe they weren't been able to. So I know there's interest. Again, it's a privatized industry, so there's not necessarily anything we can do to say, hey, look, at Deschutes County has adopted this defensible space code, but I definitely, in my mind, don't see a negative correlation associated with insurance if you guys are doing that work.
Thank you. Yeah. It would it'd be great for us to engage our local agents and ask them if they think that there would be some opportunity here.
And one other thing is we entered into an agreement with the insurance basically for home and business safety, IBHS. It's the first private public partnership for the state fire marshal, where we are basically partnering with the group that does a lot of the research around everything from construction, materials, wildland, urban interface, defensible space, and works with a lot of insurers to do some of that research. And we partnered with them as a state to utilize some of their tools and research available to us, such as their wildfire prepared home model. If you do these things, your home is, 86 or 89% more likely to withstand a wildfire. And so having opportunities like that, both at the state level and the local level, implementing programs like this are extremely beneficial when we talk about insurance.
Thank you.
So a couple weeks from now is a rulemaking public hearing, and that's at the state level. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. So the actual language of the code was already codified and completed back in February. And the rule is just a short paragraph saying the state fire marshal is adopting by rule the Oregon Defensible Space Code, the year it was adopted, and then 2 or 3 lines saying that, this is available for local municipalities for adoption. The rule itself is very small. It's a paragraph. The code itself was codified through a RAC and completed through the Oregon Fire Code Advisory Board back in February.
And who is that who's the rulemaking group?
I don't have it off the top of my head. It's the Oregon Defensible Space Code Committee, but it's made up of public, private, non-governmental fire service practitioners from across the state. State agencies are represented on there, BCD, homeowners association groups, a lot of folks. General residents who had interest in the Defensible Space Code development were all a part of that. And then that goes to the Oregon Fire Code Advisory Board, which is made up of 7 members, 2 from the Oregon Fire Marshals Association, 1 from the Oregon Fire Chiefs Association, 1 from the Oregon Building Officials Association, Building Codes Division, and then 2 members at large. And then they make the final recommendation on the code language and send it to the state fire marshal for approval.
So there's a little bit of process before it's even officially landed.
Yeah.
Even though it's stable code chapter.
Yeah.
It's still to come.
Yeah, the code, I would say the code language, I would say is as final draft as it can be. The rule language is what's still open for public comment until the 29th, and then it will be codified after the public hearing.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Just one more thing I'd like to ask
Sure.
to try to make this really concrete for people. You know, you talk about code, it can be very abstract. But you know, in recent memory here in Deschutes County, we had the flat fire last year, and so many so many firefighters from, you know, across state and local governments, you know, from out of town, from in town, have emphasized how important it was that some of the homes in the flat fire footprint had done the defensible space work, and how important that was to helping them save more houses, right? But some of them hadn't, right? And you know, I saw footage of of firefighters who were, you know, ahead of the fire front, you know, arriving in neighborhoods, doing defensible space on the spot. In some cases, you know, on the fly, to try to get those homes caught up with some of their neighbors. And I would just love to hear, you know, some perspective either from yourself, Chief Deputy Hawkins, or from some of our firefighting agencies who are here today with us on how much of a difference that makes. You know, for you know, I have no idea within the flat fire footprint what the ratio was of houses that had done the defensible space work and hadn't done the defensible space work. You know, the number of houses that were caught up on the spot. You know, like people, you know, carrying firewood away from houses. But it would be great to have a little bit of that perspective to help us understand, you know, how valuable it is to get more houses, a higher ratio of homes within a fire footprint to this level of protection and defendableness. So would you like to say anything about that, or
Absolutely.
Anyone else in the audience would?
I actually, so myself and Chief Deputy Medema, who was the agency administrator on the flat fire, we did a tour last week. I sit on a Wildland Urban Interface board for the Fire Safety Research Institute, known as FSRI, which is, you know, if anyone knows about Underwriters Laboratory or UL listed electronic devices, this is a subcommittee of that group. And we did a tour last week. We hosted it here in Oregon, the board, and we did a tour of the flat fire. Myself, Chief Medema, Chief Pryor from Sisters Fire, our Forest Service partners, Chief Foster from ODF, and we went through and had 3 stops. When you look at the 3 pillars or 3 legs of the cohesive strategy, it's that landscape resilience, emergency response, and then that community level work. When you talk about firefighter engagement on fires, defensible space from a resident does 2 things: protects that house and protects those people's ability to get out of the house. So we always it's not property. We are still in the life safety phase when it comes to on a going fire that's rapidly approaching. Defensible space, number 1, allows you to get out of your house if you didn't get notification, again, fast moving fire. And secondarily, it allows people to get in, i.e. the firefighters, in an inherently dangerous job. I've been on the biggest fires on the West Coast, from Southern California, Malibu Hills. I've been to all of those places, and consistently and without a doubt, unequivocally, the more vegetation that is around structures allowed structure to structure ignition more than I've ever seen. And when you have a community or a space within that community, a community-based group that has done work, by far those structures saved independently without any firefighter interaction, or secondarily, we were able to go in there and fight fire aggressively, and in it, again, an inherently safer, dangerous job, be a little bit safer because we have the ability to drive in there, do point protection, do bump and run. And some of those firefighting operations, we typically don't have the opportunity to do in very densely foliaged, communities where our escape, our egress capabilities are not there. And so Sisters was a great example. When we speak to 800 homes in the footprint of a fire and you're only losing 5, as terribly unfortunate those 5 are, the positive that came out of that and the community work that had taken place, it is truly why a national level group said, we want to go look at the Flat Fire. They're the ones who did the investigation on Lahaina. They're the ones that did the investigation on the Palisades fires. They wanted to come and see Oregon, specifically the Flat Fire. You see destruction. What are some of those positive examples that we can utilize as best practices, use our science folks and gather some of that data, extrapolate it, and use it for, hey, code making, educational opportunities. And I think, again, the Flat Fire is a phenomenal example of not only the federal, state, and the local level engagement from an emergency response capacity, but also that community, the Sisters Camp Sherman Fire Department in cooperation with those local users, how much work they have done with their fire corps. I mean, some of the most amazing work in that group allowed that incident to be successful. Going back to FSRI, and I just pulled this out because the data just came out on the conflagrations in LA. It's not the same. I'm not comparing LA to LA to Oregon, but I think it's important to identify what data pieces are coming out. Homes with 4 hardening features, i.e. a Class A roof, non-combustible siding, ember-resistant vents, and closed eaves. So those 4 things had a 54% less likely chance of any damage related to that fire within the fire's footprint. On the contrary, if they had more than 25% vegetation coverage in that zone 0, which is 0 to 5 foot, they had a 90% chance of partial or total destruction of the home. You are talking 90% within the fire footprint of the Palisades fire, which is 14,000, plus homes that are completely lost. 90% of them that were lost had vegetation within that 0 to 5 foot zone. And that is a shocking number when we talk about transmittability of fire and how fire progresses. So I think it's important when you look at those codes, why they are written. They are written because there is an opportunity to identify science as making a data and science-based decision when we implement some of these code provisions. So that being said, those 2 statistics really stood out for me. If you just did a couple home hardening things, you were 56% more likely to survive. If you didn't do 0 to 5 foot, 90% destruction or damage.
Thank you for those compelling statistics and testimony from the Flat Fire footprint. Yeah. Is there anyone else who'd like to make contributions?
Chad, I can tell you though, a home development down from me where my old house was in Malibu, 88 homes, 1 house burned in the 93 Topanga fire, 1 house burned, but there were firemen there. This time there's only 25 houses standing, but actually the second day of the fire, because it was Tuesday night when it burned through, the second day they lost 20 homes the second day. Embers were, railroad ties, those types of things just that hold the fire and smother, burn for a couple of weeks. They're really, you don't want to have them close to your house. No. They're just, they're really dangerous. Anyway, a lot of homes in that development actually were burned out the next day. It was because I had a neighbor that came back in, but he had the fire code that saved his house.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, we have, this was quite a good first dose of information about this model defensible space code. Are there any further questions? Does the board want to set direction to this, ask community development to bring this back at a certain point, continue the discussion and consideration of whether the county is interested in adopting this model defensible space code, or possibly something even more locally tailored or refined for us?
I think it's early in the process, a lot of good conversations we can have. There's already advocacy people calling us and wanting to know more. So this kind of sets the starting point. For us as a board, I'm probably seeing, after it's a full adoption, maybe just bringing it back for a board discussion at a work session day to figure out what the next step is. So, because I don't have a feel for the next few weeks, what is the rulemaking and all that?
Yeah, my understanding, and Chad, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like this is likely to move forward over the next 2 weeks. Staff is happy to bring this back and continue the conversation in a bit more focused manner.
As I say, I mean, when is it when is it finalized for adoption locally? I guess, I mean, I'm just thinking it's
April
all
29th.
there, but it's not. I'm sorry, go ahead.
April 29th, it will be adopted.
It's by the end of this month.
Yep.
Commissioner Darren, any?
I'd like to bring it back in a bit. I'd like to know also what Ellensburg's doing. Ellensburg, Washington State, I think they were ranked like number 2 in our Northwest region on fire dangers. And just wondering, if we can find out later what they're doing.
Well, and then big picture items is full on transition discussion, funding. I mean, who has the clipboard? I mean, that's the trick right now. Who's going to hold the clipboard? Who's got the authority? I don't have a feel for that. I mean, even if we want to do it, who's going to pay for that?
I think those are ultimately questions.
Yeah.
Or to answer. Yeah. I think when we come back, maybe a good place to start, one is just to obviously confirm code has been adopted. That would be something to look at. And then maybe looking at some other communities that have similar defensible space codes, just to give you, again, an idea of the universe of possibilities. And then start talking about, other partners in the region that we'd obviously want to include in the conversation before any future steps would make it. That obviously includes our fire protection districts. They're sort of the big players in the room, so to speak. Maybe some members of City of Sisters would like to come weigh in as well to give their feedback. Their code is relatively new, but they can give you at least some sense of how that's rolled out over time. And then obviously we can take more direction from the board.
Yeah. I like all of those ideas. I think we should, kind of within that further consideration discussion, we should, 2 things we should definitely do are, 1, evaluate whether this model code is right, or whether we would want to refine or tweak it in various ways. And then B, also have discussions with, important partners, our fire districts and fire departments about what it looks like to adopt this. And then, I keep saying inspections and compliance, but really, as has been emphasized, education is a huge part of this, and there is a lot of education already going on. There's a lot of education and technical assistance already going on in our region. So that's if education should come before inspection and compliance, then it's in some ways the foundation that we're building on, and so I think it would be great to have a broad discussion work session with a lot of our key partners in the region, cities, fire districts, fire departments, about those 3 things. What's going on in terms of education and technical assistance currently? How do we build on that, or extend upon that into the idea of inspection or compliance?
Understood.
And Commissioner Chang, if I may, just one last piece, because you really highlighted it right there, is education. When you look at that education component, there is a lot out there. Obviously wildfire is not new to Oregon, but what we are doing now is we're entering a space where there are a lot of wildfire resources available, and maybe some consumer lag in the sense of, what do I do? When do I do it? How do I do it? What group do I focus on? I've got this, that, and the other. And so when I just reiterate consistency and application, that is really my message is education, but consistency is going to help with rollout. It's going to help with folks understanding why this work is so important. So there are tools out there. Our defensible space program is one of them. And we're here to support however we can, but you are spot on. Education gets us started.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, within all that, I mean, really, I think we have a lot of excellent information. We have a lot of excellent educational material. We're competing for eyeballs, really. It's like, how do you actually get this information to rise to the top in people's attention, and all the people's attention who need to know about it? And you know, that is one of the reasons why I'm interested in this code. You know, because we have seen that we've seen that education and technical assistance and, you know, offering cost share has helped a lot of people do the work that needs to be done. And we also know that it's not enough of the people who need to do the work to really get us to a safer place for our community. And so, you know, this code I see as a potential opportunity to get to that next tier of people and making it relevant enough for them that they take the action needed. So, anything else on this?
Chad, think about it. A cord or two of firewood 5 feet from your house. I just can't imagine. It would be like a juniper tree blowing up and exploding. That to me is, I tell people when I see their firewood, I said, oh my gosh, please put it in your garage or somewhere where it's actually, you know, it's not accessible if there's a fire, because that's a lot of wood for firemen to move.
You are
Yeah.
correct. That is one of our first
I-
things when we're
I
doing
just-
structural triage,
that's-
is removing fuel around structures and taking that wood and tossing it far away from the houses.
Yeah,
So,
that is way over what you need to be doing. So anyway, it's just a little feedback.
If we wanted to proceed with adopting this model code, we could consider making a more stringent standard for firewood near the house. Okay, so this will be adopted, or, you know, the rulemaking will be complete by April 29th. I think it'd be great to bring this back shortly after that.
All right, sounds good. I'll look for a date on the board's agenda and start preparing some materials, and obviously I'll be back to continue the discussion.
Yeah, and let's if that first meeting after the rulemaking is complete is an appropriate time to start engaging our partners, you know, in a more formal way, then let's make that happen as well.
Okay.
And I hope we'll hear from people about what they want that discussion to look like, so that we can plan appropriately. Thank you.
And I want to thank Chief Deputy Hawkins for joining us today and giving an overview.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks for
Thank
joining
you.
us.
Thank you all.
And I don't blame you about driving over the pass. Honestly, I got through it before the snow. It's
Thank you.
never fun. You can spend a couple of hours up there.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Thanks, Commissioner Dare. Thank
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
Okay. That completes our formal regular agenda. Are there any other items? Actually, we'll have an executive session, but before we go there, any other items? Nick, do you have one?
Commissioners, if I may, I'm going to ask Eric Kropp, our Deputy County Administrator, and Christy Bollinger, our Property Manager, to come up, and they're on their way to provide a brief update on what is occurring on the lands on the east side of Redmond regarding encampments, as there is a lot of movement in that area, and the team is tracking the movement, engaging with the people that are moving, and they're just going to provide some facts about what is happening on the ground. And they're both here, so I'll turn it over to them if I may.
Thank you, Nick. For the record, Christy Bollinger, Deschutes County Property Management.
And Eric Kropp, Deputy County Administrator.
Good morning, Commissioners. Just wanted to provide a brief update on the status of kind of activity in East Redmond, mostly associated around the transition with Desert Rise. So in working with our security contractor, Gold Shield, they provide us ongoing updates on activity in the area and in terms of number of encampments and number of occupants. The data is not perfect. It's constantly fluid, but what we did want to provide you is just some recent information. So over the last week or so, we've had reports of about 10 encampments that have relocated from Desert Rise now onto county-owned property. And we've also had reports of a couple other encampments in the city of Redmond proper that have also relocated to county-owned property in East Redmond.
How many?
A couple additional and on
Like
top of the
3, 5,
let's see.
7?
Looks like 2.
Okay.
Again, the data is not perfect, but we just wanted to get
And it's
information.
changing all the time, I'm sure.
Changes on the hour, I'm sure. So with that, that's really the extent of our update, and we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
Yeah. And like Christy, are those, those reports back from the security team, I mean, did they see a specific encampment in Desert Rise and then saw it, the same people pop up in the green zone, or are they just noting that there's 12 more encampments in the
Typically
green?
engagement with the individuals, so asking them where they're coming from.
Okay. So they asked them. Okay. Well, that's very interesting. While we're having this kind of prolonged discussion with the city of Redmond about people moving from Desert Rise, if this conversation goes for weeks and weeks and weeks, there may be a whole bunch of people moved to the green area already before we can kind of reach any conclusions with the city. Any further thoughts on that?
So are they actually moving to the green area then?
Yeah, I think in most cases they have moved to the green zone. Yeah.
Most?
Yeah. I think
Okay,
there
so
might be
12
1 or
maybe?
2 Yeah, there might be 1 or 2 that have moved like to the core 3 area. Again, it's not perfect, the information, but we just want to provide you of the details that we have been made aware of.
Is there any kind of expectation or enforcement? So there's this green zone, which is kind of an undefined area that's on a map somewhere that we haven't officially allowed anything specifically. We've never voted on. But my point is, eastern side of Redmond, resource land, open code enforcement case, people are staying long-term. Is there a way that we could do something like asking people to not disassemble vehicles for a career, or have registered vehicles with, insurance, or, I mean, whatever, just doing something that we're stepping up? Or are we just still stuck at hands off? Nobody's dealing with any of these issues. I mean, this is just dropping something out here.
If we wanted to be very assertive about our concerns with the city of Redmond, I think we could actually prohibit people from moving from Desert Rise to the green zone.
Christy does have an update on preventing people from scrapping vehicles and metal.
So when we were in front of the board, probably a couple of weeks ago, I think Commissioner DeBonne, you posed that same question. At that time, we shared that we were rolling out a process that would prohibit individuals from scrapping, bringing cars onto the property and whatnot. And so we've worked really closely with Kim and County Council along with the Sheriff's Office. So we've rolled that out. We've put notices out to individuals. We've posted notices out in the area. And so, we're starting to work through that process. So the word is out to people so they understand that. So it'll just take time to sort of work through it. But the idea would be if somebody doesn't comply, that they would be trespassed. That's the idea behind it.
Good.
And Eric, that idea that we actually could prohibit people from moving from Desert Rise to the green zone, could you talk about like the mechanics of how that would work?
Yes, there's a couple different scenarios. Scenario 1 is where somebody that is living on the Desert Rise property chooses to relocate and has the means to relocate to the green area, which would be difficult to enforce to prohibit that. Another scenario is the person does not have the means to move themselves. And so typically at that point, the landowner has a choice of either confiscating the items and storing them for 30 days to comply with state law, or they provide a tow to that person and says, and they have to find a new spot to tow to, and they would need permission from the landowner. And in this case, we have told the city of Redmond that if they're using their tow contractor to relocate somebody at Desert Rise, that they cannot go to the county-owned green zone. And the county faced similar situations with 21st Street and the managed camp footprint. And in those situations, we notified people of the date. We had a tow company on contract, and people that did not have the means to relocate themselves were moved by the county tow contractor onto other county-owned land. And we verified that in those situations, they did not go to city land. They went to the green county land.
So we, as we're thinking about people, moving people out of the 137 acres, as the city is thinking about moving people off of 17th and, off of Desert Rise, we literally have the capacity to filter and say, people from Desert Rise, you're not allowed to come over to this area, but not to prohibit people from moving from the 137 acres or from 17th.
Well, we can tell the city of Redmond they can't relocate people onto the green zone, but if somebody has the means that is living on Desert Rise, if they have the means to relocate themselves and choose to go onto county-owned land, that's pretty difficult to prohibit.
Okay. Any further questions or thoughts on this?
Well, if we're going to do a green zone, maybe we could put some more structure to it, and look for a common ground for defining a place for people with some requirements. As I say, we're going in a circle here, and I'm thinking maybe we can make it more formal with community cultural expectations. Because if we see a camp, they're leaving a lot of waste, possibly, not everybody. But if we see one move and then all of a sudden there's a new pile of waste, we've got to mitigate that situation. So, maybe leaning in, and I'm trying not to use the long-term visitor area words, leaning in and try to put a piece of paper together that says, please follow these rules, be part of our community, don't do this, that, and we'll work with you a lot more aggressively.
Well, as we've discussed in the past, you can have a vision for how people are going to be in an area, and if you don't provide a minimal amount of infrastructure, dumpsters, porta potties, potable water, and if you don't provide patrol, security, then you can want people to behave in a certain way out on county property all you want, but it's not going to happen.
But we haven't even started. We haven't had support to really have this discussion between the three of us.
Well, what I just described was the temporary safe stay area.
With $150,000 expenses, let's extend it for another year, just another $250,000. So maybe there's a different model in there that isn't as cost prohibitive, and there's partnership for the people that are taking advantage of it. So we haven't gone down that path. I mean, the TSSA is
because it's not going to work. If there's no dumpster, people are going to dump trash on the ground.
Well, as I say, so then, haven't been supported by this. Maybe Commissioner Derry, you want to research this with me a little bit more?
I remember Redmond said that these people were a serious issue. The crime and things coming from that community. Have we seen that?
I don't know. I don't see that. I don't know if it's a different population between what they're claiming is folks at Desert Rise versus other people that are homeless living in the area.
I mean, it sounded like there was, for lack of a better word, there was like 2 generations of people, at Desert Rise. There were maybe 40 or 50 people who had been there for a long time, were engaging with services, were, not necessarily hurting anybody. And then there were
murder out there, don't forget.
And then there was a whole bunch of new people in the last 12 to 18 months who the police chief and others had a lot of concerns about. So I don't, based on the information presented so far today, like, I don't think we know whether it was the first generation Desert Rise people who may not have been, very dangerous or threatening, or it was some of the second generation that have moved out to the green zone.
Well, Commissioners, I just had learned yesterday and again this morning just about the facts that our team has been engaging and with the numbers and the movements, and I just wanted to provide that update to you. Otherwise, I would have put it on your agenda for a more robust discussion. I'm not surprised it's generated discussion and the questions that you had, so I wanted to make sure that Eric and Christy were here to answer those. But the key was just to at this point, just to provide an update to you on what we know at this time.
The fact that only 38 have moved from the TSSA and we're providing all those services, that's pretty pathetic. Honestly, we're spending a lot of money and only 38 people have actually done something positive. We had 230 people there at one time. We're down to, 190 something? Yeah, it's not really going the right way, is it?
I think more than 38 have left.
No, we were just told 38 at the TSSA had moved on, and that's with people getting social services fairly consistently, I believe. Isn't that what we're paying for?
Yeah, but I think more than 38 have left. 38 are the people who have moved on to long-term housing or established shelter.
Other people have left, then have they gone out to Redmond?
They may be, those may be some of the people who have shown up at Desert Rise, which is one of the, claims that the city of Redmond is making.
I think we should bring it back next week. We've got to get to the bottom of this.
I think I would support that, and I think it would be also helpful to get either an update directly from city staff, or for us to basically just track what's happened with the Redmond City Council and city staff in the last couple of weeks on this. Did they actually write us a formal response back to our letter?
Not that I'm aware of.
No, not that. I don't think they have.
So maybe we could ask the city of Redmond for a response.
And just to clarify, the board is requesting that we come back next week to discuss this item. Is there additional information the board would like, or what would you like staff to do in addition to asking the city of Redmond for a formal response?
Okay, we have a security company that's going around this area. I'd like exact numbers. I want to know how many people are there. We've got to get accountability. Are we actually, are we doing something successful? And people need to clean up their trash. If you can see that they're getting ready to move, then give them trash bags, whatever. They need to start cleaning up too.
Which area are you referring to that you want to see numbers?
On county land.
Well,
yeah. Let's see what's going on.
Right, we will bring back numbers and break it down by the areas to the extent we know them.
Yeah, I think it would
That'd be
be
great.
particularly helpful to understand what's happening in the green area.
specific to,
Just in terms of numbers and changes. It sounds like Commissioner Adair wants overall all that county land out there. But if as Eric said, you can break it down by areas, that would be helpful.
and I can give you, again, the status. It's not perfect. And even next week, that's constantly fluid, right? But I can just give you like the really quick numbers if that might be helpful.
Christy, I think it's better if we'll put it in the staff report.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Also, I have one other item kind of related, but it's related to the DSL land exchange and the meeting with the DSL director. So if you're ready, if the board is ready to switch topics, that's the next topic.
Yes.
The board signed a letter to DSL asking for a meeting with the director to talk about the status of the DSL land exchange. The DSL director wrote back to the board with a letter dated April 10th, and offered to meet with county staff and a commissioner. The meeting will be April 27th from 3 to 4:30. So we just wanted to check to see which commissioner the board would like to attend that meeting.
I would like to attend it.
I was going to suggest that since both my fellow commissioners and the governor are all on the ballot in the next few months, that I attend, because this could be this could get very political, and what we really need is for someone to just represent the county's interests and not make it into a either way in either directions. From the governor's end or from our end, not make this into a political thing.
Yeah, so I'd still like to be able to represent the county on this. Any thoughts, Commissioner Adair?
Just checking them. That's Monday afternoon from 3 to 4:30. Nice to know. I was making sure I didn't have an art meeting then, because I have a lot of art meetings. Well, I don't know. This has been going on, what, 10, 20 years?
Be there. I just want to be there.
Yeah.
When is the meeting?
We can all three of us be there.
The meeting is April 27th at 3 o'clock. If all three commissioners want to be there, it would be a public meeting, which is an option, but.
Sure, why not? We've been working on this for a long time. And I don't really want them to walk away. And with that, I think transparency is really important.
So yeah, that's a Monday afternoon, 1 o'clock board meeting, then 3 o'clock possibly.
What we could do is extend the board meeting to include that. We would,
Yeah, there you
we would
go.
Need to check with DSL to make sure that's okay with them.
Yeah. Why not?
The
I
other
mean,
option
we all want this to be done. We want, so.
the other option you could give them would be to come to our board meeting and just sit down and have a discussion.
Well, I think it would be nice if
Monday.
we're all in the same level though. So
Well, Mondays we do, if we typically do work sessions.
downstairs, we feel the meeting should be downstairs, but we should all be on the same level.
I don't know if the cameras work that way down here.
Well, they work fabulously. We all know that.
Can we do that? Is that do we have a public meeting down there set up? Okay,
Yeah, we do the planning commission meetings down there.
Means with the city of Bend, so we can adjust.
fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, that makes everyone happy.
You can offer them that option, come meet with all three of us here. Meet with all three of us in the field. Or if they're really insistent on one commissioner in the field, then we can continue discussion next week. How that would work.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Are there any other items?
I've got a couple items. I was able to attend the Health Council meeting last Thursday. There was a discussion about reserves, dollars in the bank that everybody kind of agreed that maybe we should just have a policy about distribution at this point in time. They went into an executive session, which is not our ORS world as much. I was able to attend that a little bit, and then I was not able to attend the very end of the meeting. So I'm not sure what the policy discussion was, but it was about reserves and, if there's time, if it's appropriate to have a plan to disperse them at this time with the partners at the table. So Commissioner Adair, you can follow up with that and
Right.
see what.
I don't know if I could say because it was an executive session. I did find out what happened.
Yeah. So, well,
don't
so they
believe I
must
can
have.
say.
Well, we'll see. I don't know what status. Career Day in Redmond last Friday morning, so it was a real nice event with a bunch of high school students. The mayor, Ed Fitch, and I ended up in a session together side by side. He was talking about becoming a lawyer and being the mayor, and I was talking about being a commissioner. So it was really, really a great event. That was last Friday morning. Saturday morning, public land stewards clean up out at China Hat. So we were out on China Hat property. There's about 100 people out there, multiple rigs, vehicles, dumpsters, skid steers. So we cleaned up kind of 2 camp areas. And a bunch of us, we just grab the buckets and go clean up the micro trash, just do a full-on perimeter sweep. Did that for a couple hours, and such a great feeling with the group that was out there. Association of Oregon County Board meeting, I was able to dial in and follow just a little bit. They were talking about annual membership dues structure a little bit. So as I say, I wasn't there for the final on that, but it was just the discussion about, hey, if we need, we're all locked into our, measure 5 and 50. And if AOC proposes a bigger number, what do we do about it? So that was kind of the concept that was being discussed there. And we'll hear about it in our board AOC updates. I wrote one more note here. I met Chief Ellison out at Black Butte Ranch recently, yesterday or the day before. So remember, Black Butte Ranch has its own little fire district. And when we have our joint meeting with the police out there, we don't really even think about the fire district. It's its own agency, but it was just good to be out there, see their facility, understand they're in the same spot, in the next future years. The revenue isn't going to keep up with expenses. So that was kind of one of the main concepts, but it's a nice little district out there. Also Oregon Living with Fire, if we had a meeting. So that's kind of a quarterly meeting. A lot of agency folks, federal land managers, everybody talking about, remember, this is kind of the connection to that cohesive strategy concept. What's the philosophy and the planning at the federal level? This is that bridge, gets us to the local level. It was just kind of a round robin discussion about different things. The BRIC grant was mentioned. Remember, we had supported a BRIC grant for High Desert Museum, and then it was just stopped, and now there's a restart to that. So there may be some BRIC grant discussion that'll come around again for an application. So.
Yeah, and then they were awarded 42 million for an expansion. So
yeah,
somebody must think they're in a safe spot.
I think that's it. Oh, one other item. So in fact, Commissioner Chang, you can help with this. So smoke permit for River Meadows. So River Meadows is a community just south of Sun River. It's on water and sewer. They have a sewer facility. They have a gravel lot next to their lagoon. They've trained everybody to drop off their yard waste, their biomass, their clippings. I don't know if it's grass, but just whatever. They make a pile every year, and they've been burning it in a coordinated, safe fashion next to a green field and a lagoon. Now they were informed they need a DEQ permit to be able to ignite that cleanup pile. And there's not a response from DEQ. And I just have a hunch that maybe it's kind of fitting back into this air curtain burner concept, because I think somebody at DEQ said, well, you should just move that from your location, your landing, to the county. The county's going to have more resources someday, and then they can either grind it or burn it or do whatever. So, and I'm just deducing this, but it sounds like DEQ doesn't want to see something combusts out there, which, if that's the case, they just need to say that, but it costs money every time you pick it up, every time you do anything, and it's going to cost money to do an air curtain burner anyways. So even if that's the future, I wouldn't, and I'm just thinking, if you know of anything about this.
So this is county property?
No, private property.
Okay. Well, we have all these Firewise communities who work with our team to get a dumpster for a couple of weeks a year. And, I don't know how big this pile is, but if it's no more than, 2 or 3 dumpsters worth of material, then they should organize as a Firewise community, get access to that dumpster, sweat equity.
It's probably the size of this room.
The pile?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's quaint to think that, we should all just pick it up and move it, or somebody should grind it, or somebody else should put it on a landfill.
If they're already all bringing it to a central place, then a dumpster is just as easy as an air curtain burner.
Well, so now there's a big pile out there. Even if the future is that, nobody's budgeted to move this pile. So now, and as I say, I'm just wondering if you have any insight into this. DEQ's come with the idea, let's not combust anything. Probably about April, the end of April this year, we need to get a decision instead of letting it sit through the summertime. So I'm just pointing out that nobody's got money to do anything.
Probably should have burned it over the winter if they were going to burn it.
Okay, well,
didn't several fire districts actually move the burning ban up 30 days till the end of April? Several have already done that. So thank goodness.
Already into the time of year where.
Okay, well, it's just an
pretty
interesting
dangerous.
scenario that's out there.
Yeah, well, you're the commissioner who sits on Project Wildfire right now, right? Is that the case? I think that'd be a great thing to bring up at Project Wildfire and do some problem solving around that table.
Maybe we can make biochar with it.
Maybe.
Maybe we
Yeah, but
Or we could have goats eat it.
it's gonna take a,
Well, we don't have any money till this fall. Yeah.
I got a couple goats for
What-
you. Felipe and Louise, if somebody wants to have two goats for a
No, actually, I know
rental.
someone who's going to do goats. Anyhow, very excited.
Kathy named them.
But they all have to be named, yes. No, I was I was listening to that AOC meeting too. Honestly, 5%. They bought a building. I thought the building was going to actually save them money. And now we're still talking 5% dues increases. Yeah, it's financially in Oregon, you saw the article came out, and Oregon is one of the two highest tax states in the entire nation. So right there with Massachusetts. It's really, people are not happy.
any additional other items?
Nope.
Okay, seeing none, we will now go to executive session.
Be right back.
Kim, you wanna?
The Deschutes County Board of Commissioners will now convene an executive session pursuant to ORS 192.660. The specific authorization for this executive session is ORS 192.6602H, which allows the board to meet in order to discuss litigation. Designated staff and the media are allowed to remain during the executive session. However, the media may only report that the board met in executive session. They identified basis for meeting in executive session. Recording devices are not permitted. The final decisions will be made, and at the conclusion, we will open the doors and invite the audience back to the meeting.
Did you look?
Yeah.
All set. So following executive session, I move approval of document 2026-0296, county council signature for 6 remnant defendant settlement regarding national opioid litigation.
I second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. Commissioner DeBonne?
Yes.
Commissioner Dare?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Thank you.
Commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now, should we sign this one?
Yeah, that'd be great while you're all together. Otherwise, I'm gonna track Brenda down and get it.
I'm sorry, did we adjourn? Wait.
No, you didn't adjourn yet.
Okay, so we'll adjourn and then the commissioners will be signing this document. Thank you.